All right, brother, we are live and direct. You ready?
What's up, dude?
What's up? And first off, I appreciate you coming on. I know that you don't really do podcasts like this, and we've been working on this for like a week. You're like, dude, if we're gonna do this, I need to order a mic. I need to make sure it sounds good. We got to get good lighting. I'm like, brother, I appreciate you. So this is perfect. A lot of people just hop on. I can't really control what their stuff sounds like, but you got the whole hookup, and we're ready to roll.
Oh man, I listen to podcasts 90% of the time in my shop. There's nothing more irritating when someone's got bad audio or something. And if I'm going to do a podcast, I've always done them in person. But when you reached out, I saw everyone you would talk to, and I started blowing through your podcast in the shop and was just blown away. And I was super stoked. And I was like, man, if I'm going to do a remote podcast, I'm going to try to figure this out a little bit so I at least bring quality to what you're already crushing.
Thank you, man. Dude, I made a real big point of this. I have a pen and I have my notebook, but there's nothing written down in my notebook at all. I just want to send it with you, get to know you, and I've been looking forward to this one for a long time. So this will be a good time.
I appreciate you, dude.
What's your story, man? Like I know, like we've talked on the phone a few times. I've seen your work. It's fantastic, but in all honesty, I don't really know a whole hell of a lot about you. I know you're in Georgia. I know you make knives,
Yeah.
but that's about it, man. So
So
I
how
want
far
to,
back do you want to go? Which direction? Because there is a lot to unpack.
of course. How about have you always wanted to do what you're doing, or did this kind of fall into your lap, or what did it
Ooh.
look like to get kind of where you're at right now?
So knife making, not at all. So, essentially skipping the childhood stuff, I found knife making. When I got out of the military, I did 8 years in the army. Joined when I was 18 years old. Well, joined when I was 17, but I got mono and had to late deploy. So for basic, so joined when I was essentially 18. Did 8 years. Got out of the military. When I got out of the military, was just really struggling. Didn't know kind of which direction I wanted to go, what I was going to do next. Did what most people do, where I was like, I'm gonna be a cop. I was in sniper sections almost my entire military career and infantry. And when I got out, it just seemed like the right direction to go. So I applied for Atlanta Police Department or Cobb County Police Department right when I got out. Went on, smoked their PT test because I was in unbelievable shape at the time. Literally had no tattoos below my sleeves because I knew that was the route I
Sure.
wanted to go when I got out. And went through their entire process, even to the point of I was homeschooled my whole life. I'm one of six kids. And my childhood wasn't bad per se. It was just incredibly sheltered. We were homeschooled for incredibly strong religious reasons. Southern Baptist, a lot of my mom kind of weaponized Christianity a good bit. And so we were just really, really sheltered growing up. So when I went to join the Army, my mom essentially forged all my paperwork for me to join because I didn't have records of schooling. I lost my dad when I was 13 years old. He was killed by a drunk driver. And when my dad died, my mom essentially stopped teaching. And we were just kind of left up to ourselves. I'm the second oldest. My sister Hannah, who's 2 years younger than me, essentially started raising the family. And I was already at that 13, 14 mark and just essentially coasted out the rest of my time and got out as soon as I could. So, that being said, when I went to apply for the police department, they needed to see a high school transcript. And I didn't have that. And I was hoping that the military paperwork would suffice for that because at some point we proved some sort of record of me having an education, and I was hoping the police department would honor that, but they didn't. So at 26 years old, I had to go get my GED after essentially having a seventh grade education and not doing school for over 10 years. So I did GEDs 5 parts. Luckily in Georgia, you can take them in individual sections. So instead of taking the whole thing at once, I would study for an entire month, take that one subject, pass it, and then do the next. So it took me 5 months to get that. Went through the whole process, was told I was going to be this amazing cadet. This is all I wanted to do. You're the greatest. And then I failed my psych eval. Not really sure what happened at the time. It like really like overly upset me, put a huge bad taste in my mouth. Now looking back, I think it was a pretty big God thing that I did not end up in the police department. So once that happened, that was essentially all I had been really planning on. And then when I lost that, I was like, shit, now what? And Cobb County Police Department has the highest budget, the best SWAT team, the best everything. And in my mind, if I couldn't go there, I wasn't willing to go anywhere else, because Atlanta was like, dude, we'll take you tomorrow.
Of course.
And I just had a bad taste in my mouth. So after that, I contracted for a couple years, started in the security world, got into bodyguarding. And essentially I had 32 jobs in the first year and a half I got out. So was just trying to figure out where I fit in the world and what do I want to do next. I knew I didn't want, I'm a big proponent of my life is essentially chapters. And once a chapter's closed, I don't look at it anymore. So I wasn't too interested in becoming like a weapons instructor or staying in that military field. I really wanted to kind of rewrite what I was doing and essentially work for myself. I just didn't know how to do that. So got into all the security stuff, bodyguarding, absolutely loved that. And then when it came time to us starting to have children, it was like, all right, I'm kind of done with this. I had some super sketchy situations throughout my career doing what I did, especially in Atlanta. And I want to be present. Losing my dad, being a father, I knew was going to be one of the biggest things that I wanted to succeed at. And I knew the amount of traveling and everything I was doing just wasn't going to work. So the next step for me was, all right, now how can I get a good job that makes really good money and I could provide for my family? So I used my GI Bill and went to welding school. And in the process of being in welding school, I was struggling pretty bad mentally. Not like suicidal or anything, just feeling very lost, very anxious, I missed having structure. I missed like kind of knowing what was expected of me and what I was supposed to be doing next. And I saw this little article in the newspaper. It was, come take a blacksmithing class. You're going to make a knife out of a railroad spike. And it was through a program called Hammer Therapy with Goat and Hammer here in Atlanta. Just a really amazing local blacksmith school. And I walked in there with no expectations. I think we had like $500 in the bank account. And Sid, my wife, was just like, man, I really think you should do this. Go take this class. You should do something fun for yourself. And man, when I walked out of that class, I came home and my wife was like, I don't know what you just did, but you need to do that again. It's hard to put into words. I just felt free. It's blacksmithing for me. My brain is a little bit wild and it goes pretty nonstop to a fault. And there's few things in my life that give me complete tunnel vision. And for me, it's driving, archery, and blacksmithing. Those are like the three things that for some reason I could turn everything off and just focus on whatever's directly in front of me. So I knew I needed to keep doing it. Didn't really have the money for classes. So whenever an opportunity would come where I had a little extra change, then I'd buy another class. And I just kept showing up at this blacksmith school. And Mark Hopper and Jess, they're the ones that run it. They just took a liking to me and saw the enthusiasm. And I was very open. I'm a very open person with just who I am, feelings. I'm a pretty raw human. And told them how much it meant to me and what it was doing for me in my life, and started sweeping around the shop. Classes got cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. And then it just got to a place where they couldn't get rid of me. And just started making knives for friends and family. And then it slowly started to gain legs. And what was nice is in this time frame, I'm in night school for welding. So I would go to night school from 6 to about 2 a.m., and then my wife worked from 8 to 5. So when she was working, I was watching our newborns at the time and just hanging out with them. And when they would have their nap time or sleep or even sticking a playpen in the driveway, I'd open up the shop doors and I'd be working on blacksmithing. And it gave me a year to kind of play with it without ever even thinking it could be a business, make money at it, any of that. And by the time my graduation from welding school was coming up, you know, I had a conversation with my wife and I was like, I think I can do this. I think there's something here. I'm really enjoying this. People are buying my work. I don't really understand what's happening, but I'm kind of going to roll with it. And it's exactly what I did. And that was the beginning of Grizzly Forge.
I love that, and I want to dive deeper into that here as we continue. But going back, man, and we don't have to touch on it if you don't want to.
I'll touch on anything, brother. What's up?
Were you pretty close with your pops?
Yeah. I was really close with my dad. He was an unbelievable father. It's kind of tough. I kind of have this hero mindset because I was only 13, so I only remember what I remember, and I know that everything wasn't perfect now being in my late 30s, just obviously, but he's heroed in my mind forever because I only have the image of my father as a 13-year-old. And what I do know about my dad, and one of the reasons I put him on the pedestal that I do, is he was a construction worker, master electrician, hard worker. I didn't have my own bedroom till I picked up rank in the military. Was the first time I kind of had my own space. I shared a room with my 3 brothers. My 3 sisters shared a room. We had a real tiny house. And again, not poor per se. I never went without food or anything like that. But comparatively to the circles we were in, we were not like everyone else. But I didn't know any different. It was just kind of life. So my dad wasn't into any sports, and that came to me. I don't know shit about sports, and he would always joke when guys at work would give him shit like, you're not going to watch the game, you're not going to do this. He would always say that his kids were his sport. And he meant that. Every moment he was home, we were with him. He was super focused on all of us. He's the one that wanted all the children. In my later years, I haven't talked to my mom in 15 years and half my siblings in about the same. And reconnecting with some of I have a brother who's 10 years older than me that now is super involved in my business. We can get into that a little later. But he's super involved in my business now, and it's kind of cool. We didn't have much of a relationship for a long time, but he's 10 years older than me. So he was 23 when my dad was killed. So now being at this age, I get to ask him a lot of questions and kind of check the memories that I have, because our brains can sure come up with some wild shit that may or may not have happened, especially in childhood. So it's real nice to kind of check those facts with him now, and everything I remember is about the same. He just loved spending time with us, was very focused. He was really big into camping, which is where I think my love for the outdoors kind of comes from. It was not rare for us to go camping once or twice a month, where he would just load up our little pop-up camper. It literally had the O'Hara family, here we go again, on the back of it. And we would just go hit local campgrounds. And that's where he was real happy, just being in the outdoors with us. And I was just getting to that age where I was going to start really relying on that father figure for guidance and kind of showing me what a man is meant to be. I just never got that opportunity, sadly.
Have you reconnected with your mom?
No, not at all, and never will. There's a lot tied in there. My mom is a very manipulative person. There's some medical issues in there as well, bipolar, schizophrenia. None of it which is diagnosed. It's just years and years and years of us in therapy and talking about it and kind of working through all of that. She's just a very manipulative, mean person and a very loose woman, which affected us greatly growing up, especially once my dad died. And it's just something that for my family, for my mental well-being and everything, just kind of had to step away from.
Yeah, you got to look after you and yours first, man.
You really do. And I put in a lot of work, especially in the early days, trying to be there and work through all of that. But then it started being pretty detrimental to me mentally. And, through a lot of consideration and a lot of wild things early on, it was just time to close that chapter and kind of move on. I'm very blessed to have family in my life. I still have a mom and dad in the knife community. Steve and Laura Schwartzer are 2 unbelievable knife makers, and they're late 60s, early 70s. And I got real close with them about 4 years ago, and they essentially kind of took that father-mother role. So it's been real cool. I've had a lot of people take on those roles throughout my life, through military, contracting, friendships, and even to this day, it sucks that my blood isn't there, but I think that I'm in a much better place by the family that I have now.
Yeah. Well, good for you that you were able to find those people.
Yeah, I was very blessed.
Yeah, without question. What did the military teach you? Was that something that you wanted to do, or was that like, yo, I need to get out of the house and I need to experience something?
It was definitely that. This is going to sound a little cheesy. I'm a very large human. I've been a large human most of my life. I'm 6'7". When I was younger, I was a straight beanpole. Like I had to gain weight to be allowed. I joined the Army at 146 pounds and at 6'7". And I had to gain 20 pounds before I graduated to be allowed to be in the military. For me, joining the military, I knew I had to get out of my house. I knew I needed to be free. I knew I needed guidance and structure, which is something I never got. And this is something that I've kind of unpacked over the last 2 years. I am coming out of a pretty big regrow or rebirth. I would say the last 2 years, I hit rock bottom 2 years ago, and this is me coming out the back end of that. But at the time for me, I just knew I had to get out. And I knew that I've always been a protector per se, where I can't just not like if something's happening in front of me, I got to do something. I've never been the guy with the cell phone. I've never been able to just kind of stand by. And I've always had this almost big brother mentality of just wanting to look after those smaller than me. So I wanted to be a sheriff at first, and then found out that I could join the sheriff department at 18, but I'd work in the detention cells till I was 21, and then allowed to carry a pistol and then do the actual sheriffing. And I just wasn't interested in that. I just needed to go, and went into a recruiter, and they were like, "You're perfect." And this is in 2005, like during the surge. So it was no problem for me getting in. And then once I got in, it was a pretty hard wake up for me. Like I said earlier, I was incredibly sheltered at that time, never drank, never smoked, hadn't kissed a girl, hadn't done anything. And then joined the Army. I'll never forget, my recruiter was like, "Hey man, biggest thing you need to know is just if you can get through basic and the drill sergeants don't know your name, you succeeded. Just lay low, whole 9 yards, be good." None of that happened. I joined the Army, like I said, I'm 6'7". I'm an absolute beanpole. And like I said, I got stuck on their rations program, which all it did was put a spotlight on me, where I would get front loaded for chow. I would get to eat everything that everyone else is not allowed to have: cake, ice cream, cheeseburgers. Especially in like red phase, you're rushed, screamed at, throw your food in the trash can, all that crap. Me, I'm just sitting at a table by myself eating. And what got worse is after you're done with chow, especially the first few months, you normally would get smoked after. So push-ups, sprints, running. Then I was throwing up all the food that I just ate. So then I had to start carrying around a lawn chair with me at chow. Once everyone got done, I would have to sit in that chair for an hour, wait for my food to digest while everybody else is getting fucked up. So when it would get back to the bay, as you can imagine, this skinny homeschool super shelter kid isn't going to do so good in that environment. Was very hated. Not a lot of people liked me in the beginning. And at that time, all I wanted to do was for everyone to like me. So I just tried harder, which just got worse. So finally, about halfway through, I just was like, well, this sucked. My bed was at the far end of the row. I just kind of kept to myself, kept kind of getting fucked with. And then halfway through, we got a restart through basic. So once we got into I don't remember what phase it was, but we had a guy that rolled over, and he was on the gang program from North Carolina, or I'm not North Carolina, New York. He was an ex-Latin King, this massive black dude, tattoos all the way up to his face, hands, whole 9 yards. And he was my new bunkmate. And was a little nervous at first. We had another guy that was affiliated with someone else in basic. So like the drill sergeants pulled everyone together, had this big speech. You now all wear one color, blah, blah, blah. We're not going to have any issues. And we didn't. But the cool thing is that Latin King just kind of took a liking to me and got to know me a little bit. And that was the last time I got fucked with in basic. And we did absolutely everything together, kind of hung out with me. He was much older. He was in his late 20s. And like I said, I was 18 at the time. And that kind of coasted out the rest of my basic. And then from there, went to airborne school. Then I went to RIP, went through Ranger indoctrination training there at 3rd Battalion. And then I was there for roughly 4 or 5 months. Had some issues there, not with me personally, just some guys that I got tangled up with that got in a lot of trouble, and I wouldn't snitch on them, essentially. This is the short version. and got RFS'd out of Ranger Battalion. My instructors and RIs were really amazing. They didn't really want to see me go, but the situation, just there was no way around it. And instead of getting shipped to needs of the Army, I got shipped off to the Presidential Honor Guard in D.C. Because of my height, it was an instant, this is where you should go. And my RIs and instructors at the time wanted to see me come back one day. So they were like, hey, go up there, get all the schools you can, because at the time the Presidential Honor Guard was real big on sending guys to military schools. And so, yeah, I went and did 2.5 years, 3 years in the Presidential Honor Guard, got to do some really amazing stuff up there, which wasn't combat or military, or I would say not infantry related. It's a ceremonial unit, but I got the opportunity to do a lot of things that I would never get to do anywhere else. I did 527 funerals in Arlington National Cemetery. At the time, I would say at least 200 of those were active duty in Section 66, which I took a lot of pride in. You know, a lot of these men and women that gave everything, the last thing their family is going to see of the military is us laying their sons and daughters to rest. So I took a lot of pride in my job. And then I went and tried out for CCG, which is the Continental Color Guard. And I made the Continental Color Guard. And then I did the colors at all the main events around the U.S. Daytona 500, Final Four, Obama's inauguration. I got to jump in the 65th anniversary of Normandy. Just got to see and do a lot of real cool stuff. And then when my time came up and it was time to re-enlist, I said, who's the first unit deploying? I've got to deploy. Because the other thing about the old guard is they were what was called old guard babies, guys that joined, because the old guard at that time was a non-deployable unit. From my understanding, it's deployed a few times since, but at that time it was non-deployable. And there were a lot of guys that were like E6s, E7s, E8s that had been old guard babies their entire career and had never deployed. And that, for me personally, just didn't sit right. And I knew that I couldn't get out without doing what I felt like I joined to do. So figured out what was the very first unit deploying, and it was 3rd Infantry Division out of Fort Benning. And they were 2 months away from deploying, so that's where I re-enlisted for. Went over there, and then I did 2 deployments with 3rd ID, left active, and then I joined a National Guard LURS unit for 1.5 years on their sniper teams.
How were your deployments?
They were good. Nothing super crazy or anything like that. I would say a normal deployment. To be 100% honest, I don't talk too much about military stuff. I don't remember too much. Like I said earlier, I live in chapters of my life. My wife, if she was here, she would die laughing because it's so true to an extreme. Once I close something, I'm done. The military was a huge part of who I am, but I've lived about 7 lives since the military. And they've been completely different in every way. And I loved what I did, but it's not, I don't think about it. It's not something that I resonate with every single day I wake up missing being overseas. It was just a chapter of who I was. So I'm always real. It was good. No crazy issues, but I've always kind of just skirted that because there's no one who hates vets more than vets. And our community is a pretty savage community. And I see a lot of guys that was who they are and their identity is still in that. And I don't ever want to be associated with that. It's just, I'm a knife maker now. I'm a father, I'm a husband, and that's what I am today. So when it comes to what was it like and all that, a normal deployment, I would assume. My first deployment was 11.5 months, and then my next one was 8 months, all in Iraq. I never got to go to Afghanistan. And like I said, I wasn't in Fallujah or anything crazy. We would get, into firefights here and there, a lot of mortars and rockets, but I don't know. It just wasn't, I just wanted to serve. So I did. And now I'm doing something else.
You listened to the podcast I did with Trevor.
Yeah, I actually finished it up this morning.
Yeah, we touched on that, if you remember.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate you kind of just being like, it was cool. That's something I did, but it's not who I am, right?
And to be honest, my brain, I meet guys and it baffles me that when I talk about deployments or they open up and they share, and they remember everything. You come out, you make a left, there was that rock on the right, you go like, I got nothing. Like, I remember my fobs names, I remember basic stuff, but like I said, I explain my brain as a big chest of drawers. I can only have one drawer open at one time, and I'm a hyper focused on that drawer. Second that drawer closes and I open up another one, I forget what's in that drawer. And for me, that's just how my brain works.
I think I don't know if it's necessarily a trait or not, but if it is, I think it's a good one. That's how I am too.
It can be
Yeah.
until you need to remember something, or like somebody asks you a question that is important and I literally don't remember, because I don't need to know how. I just need to know how to do it. So I'm not one of those guys that goes deep into every, like sniper, our weapon systems. I could tell you, I know everything about the 2 sniper rifles I carried. I know how to shoot them. I know everything about them. Aside from that, my little brother knows more about long guns than I do from playing Call of Duty. So like, again, that's kind of how my brain works, is I'm really good at what I have in front of me. That's all I need to focus on. Everything else, I'm not too worried about it, as long as it doesn't pertain to what I'm doing right now. I just don't have that brain to retain that knowledge. If I'm not using it, my brain dumps it damn near instantly. And I know for a fact from this last year of a lot of work on my head that a lot of that's TBI related.
Yeah. And you did mention you kind of hit rock bottom 2 years ago. You don't necessarily need to go into it, Lucas. Obviously, you don't need to do anything. But everybody's struggling with something, man. And I just feel
I think that's one of the reasons, to be very honest with you, I was intrigued in doing this, is you know nothing about me. Besides the few podcasts I've got to listen to, that's all I know about you. And I don't know, it's not in a gay way, but it's like, it's a safe space. It's like, there's a lot that's happened in this last 2 years that I have not had an opportunity to kind of talk about. And to be honest, I'm pretty stoked to get to talk to you about all this, because 2 years ago, it looked like I had absolutely everything any human in my position would ever want. And I lost all of it. And it was all because of myself. And so I think there's a lot of really cool stuff packed in there.
Can we jump into it, man? Because, I mean, at the end of the day, I know a lot of people are going to listen to this, and if we can help, it's cliche, dog, but like if we can help if we can help one single person, I tell that to everybody that I ask to kind of come on the show in one way, shape, or form. It's like, I'm selfish in the fact that I want to learn from whoever I have on the show, but at the end of the day, man, they're going to learn something from this, and you might hit a nerve with somebody and be like, I'm in the exact same situation, or I can resonate with what Lucas went through 2 years ago, and this is how we got out, and it wasn't easy, but he fucking did it, and that gives people hope. So if you're open to diving into it, man,
hell yeah,
I would love to.
So we'll go back to, I start Grizzly Forge, tell my wife, hey, let's do this. Graduate welding school and start. Failed miserably. Within 2.5, 3 months, our power was turned off, water got turned off. Absolutely doing horrible. I sold like 8 or 9 knives. I had a few customs lined up. I just didn't have the speed to crank out enough knives to make a living at it. And my work just wasn't getting a ton of traction. So like I said, we have a 1-year-old, a newborn, power, water, everything gone. Feel like I've completely failed as a husband, a provider, a father. Go down, photograph my entire shop to sell. And my wife was like, hey, already had applied for a welding job. And my wife was like, hey, let's just give it 1 more week. What else can they do? Let's just get through this week and see what happens. This is almost 8 years ago now. That next day, I got a phone call from Evan Hafer, the CEO of Black Rifle. And at that time, Black Rifle was really just now starting to take off. Quick backstory. I already was very aware of Black Rifle, aware of who all the guys were. I knew of Matt from Battalion. He started putting out all his hilarious videos early on in the war. And it was the first like real military humor that resonated with us. So they had started a podcast at the time called Drinking Bros. And it essentially, all of them were still in either contracting or in the military. And I just really latched on to this group of guys. I was like, I love this community they're building. I love everything about them. And when I was listening, I felt like I was back in the military and I was with my friends. And it filled a massive hole for me. And then as Black Rifle started getting big, I mean, I bought the first bag of Black Rifle coffee Evan ever released.
Shut up.
Yeah. So at the end of one of Matt's videos back in the day, at the credits, there was just this little dude like, "Hi, Black Rifle Coffee." And I think they sold like 500 bags, maybe. I don't even know. And it was just a website link. If I'm not mistaken, he was doing them out of his garage. And so, I mean, I bought on the very first bag they ever roasted. And again, I kind of latch on to things and I go all in on everything I do. And I went all in on these dudes. And I was like, I don't know what they're doing, but I have to be a part of it. And I told my wife, literally, I told her, I was like, one day I will be a part of whatever these guys are doing. I just don't know how. And then at the nightclub I was working at, one of my friends came in and he brought in Baker Levitt, who was very closely tied in with Black Rifle. He worked for them and everything. Had a great talk with Baker, was like, dude, I'm a huge fan, of everything y'all are doing, blah, blah, blah. Oh, let me back up real quick. This is important. So right before I go contracting, I had gotten one of my clients, I won't go into the whole story, I've done it before, but one of my clients got arrested by the FBI. It turned out he did the exact same thing that Bernie Madoff did, a really massive Ponzi scheme. And I lost over $75,000 with him, was held at gunpoint by over 40 federal and local agents, watched him get bagged and tagged, threw in the back of a car, taken away from us while we were in Nashville, whole 9 yards, lost a lot. Was in a really bad place and I didn't know what to do. And this is previous or before Black Rifle. I reached out to Evan, Matt, Logan, and Rocco at the time, kind of told my story and was like, I'm in a really bad place. I don't know what to do. My client just got arrested. I have no money. I'm at rock bottom. Help. And I didn't even know what I was asking for. Within 10 minutes, Jared Taylor reached out to me on Facebook, said, give me your number. I gave him my number. He was like, where do you live? And I said, I live in Woodstock, Georgia. Within an hour, he had a job for me working at where at the time it was called Terminus. It was where they pack and fold all their t-shirts. And he was like, it's not much. It's like $16 an hour. But if you go tomorrow morning, you got a job. And loyalty is a really big deal to me, like a really big deal. It's probably the biggest deal. And once that happened, in my mind, those guys were brothers. There's no way to tell me otherwise. And I didn't even work there that long. I worked there 2 weeks before I contracted. So fast forward, do the contracting, come back. Now I'm into knives. Evan reaches out to me the day after I photographed my entire shop and goes, hey, dude, we've never got to meet or anything. Some of the guys have told me some awesome stuff about you. Could you make us a bag opener that opens up our coffee bags? At the time, they weren't resealable. I was like, hell yeah, dude. Sent him like 5 designs. And at this time, I'd only made maybe 20 knives. And he got, ooh, I like that one. Can you make 50 of them? Yes. Could I? Absolutely not. But I was like, oh, that would be no problem. Within 24 hours, the payment for those 50 blades was in my bank account. And that's what turned the power on, turned the lights on, busted my ass for 3 weeks, knocking all those bag openers out, taking all the content, sending it to them. And it really blew up. And through all that is really where Grizzly Ford started gaining his legs. And this is before like social media got weird. Knife content still got shared at this time. So my Instagram really started taking off. And then I sent that order and Evan goes, dude, this is amazing. Can you do 150? And I was like, yeah, knock that batch out. And at that time, it was really starting to do good. I was getting orders out the ass. And I was like, holy shit, babe, we're going to do it. And then the day I dropped those bag openers off, I was like, I'm going to take 3 days off, kind of recoup. And now I'm going to get to making all these knives I now have in orders. It's February 2020 at this time. Drop those bag openers off. My buddy calls me and says, hey, can you come help me move a gun safe real quick? Yeah, man, not a problem. I'll run over. Long story short, I end up dropping that 1,000-pound gun safe on top of myself as I'm loading it up a ramp. So if you've got your trailer like so, I was the guy, because at this point I'm a very large human. I'm about 310 pounds, juiced to the gills. And loading this safe up, got a guy left, guy right, guy back. Guy on the back, instead of pushing from the base of the safe, he pushed from the top and it pivoted it down. So the safe landed going up the ramp, which snapped my back on the flat part. So the safe, the only thing that saved me was the safe was angled up off of my stomach, snapped my back on the ramp, and I don't remember anything else. I woke up in the hospital, but it fractured my spine in 6 places, L1, L2, L3, and I broke my ankle. And this was week 2 of COVID.
I was going to say,
So-
now COVID's coming in, and this is just not looking good. And I don't even know what happens next.
And at this time, I had been a pretty large piece of shit as a spouse through all of this. And my wife and I at the time had just separated. So I had just moved into my brand new house, had nothing there. I'd moved in a week prior, break my back, and there's no one coming to help, because everybody at this time, this is the phase where people are wiping off stuff at the front porch. No one really knows what's going on. So at that point, I would say that was my first growth year in the right direction, is I was on my ass for 4.5, 5 months, not able to move, and kind of just left in my head. Kind of started making the decisions in my life that kind of got me here of, I need to change a lot and I need to fix this. At the time, I didn't know what I was going to do for money because I can't work now. I get my Venmo goes off and it's for a hefty chunk of money. And I saw it was from Black Rifle, and I reached out to Evan and I was like, dude, y'all have already paid me. And he was like, yeah, I know. This is for our upcoming order of bag openers. And he goes, get yourself better. Once again, now this is 3 times these people have really stepped up for me in the process of starting my business. We had been in talks of potentially maybe me moving out there and working out of one of their buildings. But when my wife and I separated, I was like, absolutely not. I'm not leaving my family. I got to stay close to them. So I get through that healing process. I heal incredibly well from that, get my wife back. And in the process of that, Evan, the day he found out we were back together, was like, I'm flying y'all out. Would love to have you come to Utah. So we fly out. My wife's not really interested in going. All of her family's here, all of her friends, same 4 friends from like high school, like just very plugged in to where we live. All her parents are right down the road. But we went, and Evan showed us how absolutely amazing it was. And of course, I'm all in. I've got no ties to nothing. This is my community. I've wanted to live out west. Shit, I named my business Grizzly Forge, and there's not a grizzly bear anywhere near us. So like, this is my dream. And the wife at the time was like, saw how happy I was and was like, all right, let's do it. So got back together. I'm better. Evan says, let's go. She and I, at this time, were not even married. We had been together 7 years or so, and I just hadn't pulled the trigger yet. We had been engaged before we had separated, but she goes, I'm not moving without being your wife. So we literally went to Vegas, got
Rightfully
married.
so, brother.
Went to Vegas, got married in a limo in a drive-through because it's still COVID. So they weren't even doing face-to-face weddings. So we literally pulled up to a fast food joint that had got switched to a chapel and roll the window down. We're in the back of a limo wearing masks. Window, like where you get your food, opens up and there's the pastor, and did our wedding through the window. So it's kind of a rad story. One of my good friends is a photographer out there, and she took us on top of these really dope hotels with the neons, and it was a 24-hour whirlwind. And then we came back, and a week later moved to Utah. Get to Utah, and like I said, I've got a building 7 times bigger than my shop before. I'm thriving in every way, shape, and form a human can thrive. Business is crushing. One of my really close friends at the time was also a blacksmith. Him and his family moved out there and moved in the shop with me. because I had all this space and I was like, man, I really want to bring someone out there that could benefit from all of this as well. So I've got one of my best friends working with me. I'm surrounded by all my best friends. I'm traveling all over the place, getting all these amazing opportunities that Evan essentially just laid in my lap, because every person that came and did a podcast, that came to see Black Rifle, that came to do any of that, they came to my shop as well. So like I said, I don't think there could have been a better situation. Those 2.5 years go by in my mind, the best it ever could have gone. I'm the grand poobah. I am everything that is man. My life is perfect in my mind without realizing that my wife was dying and all of that.
Was it, not to cut you off, man,
No,
but
please do. Well, I'll keep going.
no, was it, looking back at it, was it kind of the Lucas show?
Oh, it was 100% the Lucas show with no consideration for anything else, because look at this amazing life I'm giving you.
Right.
All the work, all of this, we wouldn't have this, you wouldn't have the car, the kids wouldn't be in this private school. We would have none of this if I wasn't doing this. Look how amazing I am. You should worship the ground I walk on. And if you don't, I'm going to find somebody that will. And that's exactly what I did and how my brain worked. Every affirmation I have learned is my biggest weakness. I used to say when I was younger, it was, your love languages, physical touch, all that kind of stuff. I used to say it was physical touch because I'm a dude. When you really break it down, it's affirmation. And any place that I've ever gotten in the weeds in my life, it's been affirmation based, where you build a relationship with an opposite sex. Things are said nice and things go good. You build a real good friendship. And then one day that friendship turns into something you weren't quite expecting. And then you're like, oh, fuck, how the fuck do I get out of this? There was a lot of that over the years where if I wasn't getting what I needed, I found a place to get it. And that was 100% going on at that time. And not always even a physical thing, just conversations that shouldn't be had, late night talks, whatever it is. I even sadly justified it in my mind at that time of, hey, these people, not always females, like men too, like just where I was putting my time. If I do this, I'm happy, then I come home happy, so my family's benefiting from this. Or I could come home and go, why aren't you touching me? Why aren't we hanging out? Why don't you want to go do this fun thing? Without realizing that my wife was just drowning. She had no friends, no family. The friends she did make were only one or two, and they had their own lives. I took her from absolutely everything, and then she had to sit back and watch me thrive without any consideration for her. So we are 2.5 years into living there. And, even the business side, I was just coasting. Like everything was so good. Nothing had happened yet to make me think otherwise. And, we were about to, my shopmate that I had move out, he was originally from Washington and was moving back to Washington with his family. And we had talked about us moving to Washington with them, continuing this awesome thing we had going at their property. So we were 2 weeks. I'd already made my goodbyes, told Evan we were going to leave, 2 weeks away from moving to Washington, where after we got back together when I broke my back, I had been a 10 times bigger piece of shit the years leading up. When I broke my back and had those 6 months together, I knew what I wanted. I knew how much I love my wife. I knew what my heart felt and the direction I wanted to go. You can want to build a skyscraper more than anything on earth, know everything about it. But if you got a toolkit of Fisher-Price hammers, you can't build shit. No matter how much you want to, you don't have the tools. So at this point, I knew what I wanted. I just didn't have the tools to figure out how to get there. And through generations of my family, my bullshit, all the mental and physical trauma I've been through in my life, I didn't have the tools. So when I went to Utah, in my mind, fresh start, I escaped everything that was the problem. Atlanta was the problem. It was never me. It was, I can't be around these people, the partying, the clubs. I just got to run away. If I go back, the same thing's going to happen. We get to Utah, and then I still slipped up, but let's say it was 1/10 of the slip ups I had had previously, which in my mind go, I'm doing so much better. I almost made it. And now I'm 2 weeks away from this move. This is when it's going to be perfect. Now I'm going to have no slip ups. And in my mind, that is literally how I felt of I'm now escaping this last little bit. I'm so close. And now I'm going to really commit to this. And, so I'm super stoked. The day it happened, I drove to work and I audibly said out loud, this is the happiest I've ever been, because I felt like I was there. Like it's such a weird thing. Like I said that out loud. I pull into my work and I get a phone call and it's my wife. And, I'm like, hey babe, what's wrong? Like, cause we still didn't even have a house in Washington and we're moving in 2 weeks. And I was like, hey babe, how's the house going? Like, we're getting kind of close. We need to figure this out. And she just goes, I want a divorce. And, I was super calm at the time because it's not the first time this has happened. And I've always been able to get myself out with my words, manipulation, bullshit. Like I believe my own bullshit. And was like, I'm on my way home. Jumped in my truck, flew to the house, walked in, and she was on the couch, very calm at the time. And we just started talking. And about 10 minutes in, I realized she was super serious. And this was it. With everything that had lined up, and she had been hurting this whole time, which I'd never even really realized. In the last 4 months, she was doing everything she could to try, which in my mind goes, look how amazing this is. It's gotten so good, without realizing she was doing all these things just to try to make it work. And then at the end, she realized it wasn't going to work. And all I was doing was literally moving her to the furthest away place I could from her family, her friends, everything she cared about. And I remember sitting there and realizing it was real, realizing that in my mind in that moment, I just lost everything. I lost my wife. I lost this move. I lost my business. Because everything was in absolutes in my mind at this time. I was going to lose my friendship. It was too much. And I remember like looking at her and I was just baffled and I didn't even know what to say. And I was having a bit of like I don't know medically what a panic attack is, but I'm assuming that's what I was having. And I just didn't want to be there anymore. And I walked out and I went to my truck and I drove somewhere and just kind of sat there and I didn't know what to do. And I was panicking and I was shaking and I had my pistol in my lap and I called one of my best friends at the time, Austin Balls, who was a videographer out there for Black Rifle. And he answered right away. And I was just shaking and crying. And I was like, dude, I don't know what to do. I need you. And he was 45 minutes away on a video shoot. He works for a really big company called Tac Gas out of Utah. They do everything for like Call of Duty, all this kind of shit. He had like $3 million worth of camera gear in this Sprinter van that he was on a shoot with, jumped in the van and just left. Drove the 40 minutes to my house. He goes, I need to make some phone calls. Don't move. I'm on my way. I sat there in my driveway and I called, or it wasn't my driveway. I sat where I was sitting at and I called 22 people and not one person answered the phone. And every single person that didn't answer the phone, it got worse. And I'll never forget, the last person I called was Terry Hewen, who is a very dear friend of mine. A very powerful, amazing, wonderful human. He was on Gold Squadron. He was the operator that jumped in for Captain Phillips. He's the operator that took the shot on that. He's just everything that a man is. That's how I look at Terry. And I called Terry and he answered. And I was barely able to talk at that time. I was just kind of shaking and crying. And he just sat on the phone and was like, I'm here for you, bud. I love you. You're not going anywhere. And he sat on the phone with me for 15 minutes until Balls got there. And then Balls got there and loaded me up in his van. And we went for a drive. And as we're driving, the further away I got, I think the more shame I started feeling, because there's nothing I love more on this earth than my daughters. And losing my dad, I know that's what can come of that from a child, losing your father, just mentally, life, everything. And not to say it's even worse for daughters. So I started feeling some pretty immense guilt for even letting my mind go to where it was in that exact moment of panic. And Austin had lost his father a few years prior. His family goes snowmobiling every Christmas. He's a professional snowmobiler, one of the best in the world, along with his brothers, lived on these mountains, and they lost their dad Christmas morning on an avalanche. And now Austin is one of the leading experts in avalanche rescue and safety, and he teaches it all winter in Utah. So it's a big thing for him. And I had known all this. We had that common ground of losing our fathers. And we go on this like 2-hour drive, and we just go up in this beautiful canyon up in Utah, up in the high country. And then he just kind of like, we're sitting there, and he goes, "That's where my dad died." And he took me to where his father had passed. And I don't know why, but it was just like at that moment, it was one of the most resonating moments for me in my life. And I made the decision of like, I'm going to be here, and now I got to figure out how I fix this. Went back home. Sid had gone and stayed with some friends and everything. And for me, this is a big part of this story is I've had my faith my whole life. I was raised as a Christian. My faith is very different from the way a lot of other people look at faith. I have a very personal relationship with God, and that's kind of where it lays. I work, at the time I'd done like 62 mission trips with my church growing up. And for me, again, it was acts of service, like doing. I barely ever went to a Sunday morning service, but I was on a hurricane relief team. I went to Alaska 6 times. I was on choir, ensemble, church on the street where I fed homeless every Tuesday and Thursday for 5 years. Actions is where I love it. So I had that faith, joined the military, and essentially had lost it over this entire time, where I think I kind of just, life was going so good where I was kind of like, I got this, until now. And I went out in my backyard and I laid on my face, literally on my face in my backyard. And I just confessed everything that I'd fucked up, as many things as I could remember. I was just like, I'm a piece of shit. Here's all of it. I kind of need your forgiveness right now, and I need guidance of what to do next as a man. Like, I'm at ground zero. I was about to come up and meet you face to face. Now I've made the decision to stay here. So this is where I'm going to start, by knowing at least one entity has forgiven me for everything that I've done. And now I'm going to start figuring out where I need to go from there. So I regained my faith through all of that. And I knew I needed to get my family home, because at this time, it's just, I want a divorce. She doesn't know what's going to happen. She doesn't know if I'm going to try to keep the kids out west. That's where our home of record was. That's everything. Evan would have very quickly let me stay and just keep working there. But I knew that wasn't the right answer. So I sold essentially everything I had, sold my guns, sold every knife, all my knives that I had collected. And I moved my family home. Got them back here. And in the process of moving home, I had to start digging into my finances, and found out that was my second failure. I like making knives. I like doing all of this stuff, but I'm a horrible businessman at this time in my life, and I don't know what the fuck to do. I would tell people, hey, you're going to be my tax person. You're this, you're that. And I never followed up on anything. I would just write it off of, it's taken care of. The day that I was on my way back, found out that I hadn't paid a business tax in over 3 years. I owed the IRS over $180,000. I had liens on absolutely everything, and I was about to lose it all within probably 3 months. So I've lost everything. I've lost my wife. I lost Black Rifle. I lost this next move. Well, not lost, but in my mind, lost. And now I'm about to lose my business. And I came home. I reached out to my brother, who I mentioned earlier in this. And he is a partner in a CPA firm out of Orlando, a legit genius, opposite of me in every way, shape, and form, a complete intellect. And we didn't really have much of a relationship at this time. And I just reached out to him and I was like, Seth, I don't know what to do. I've got nothing. Here's where I'm at. And I landed, I drove back. We got back to Georgia, let's say that Saturday. And then he had me on a flight to Orlando that Sunday morning. Hopped on a plane, spent 5 days with him, where he essentially ripped me a new one for 5 straight days, went through every bank statement. I had nothing personal anymore. I gave him access to my life. And he went through absolutely everything and was like, you're pretty fucked, but if we make X amount of money and you can do this, 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 and this, we might be able to save this. But you are going to have to commit and do this right. And I was like, yes, sir. That's all I need to hear. So I went back home, and then this is where it was real rough. I couldn't buy my house until I figured out where my family was going to live, because living far away was just not an option for me. So it took them close to a month or so to get a house, and then they got a house. And then now I had a 15-mile radius to find a house with a shop that doesn't have covenants within the neighborhood that I can run my business out of. Made 7 offers on 7 different houses, lost all of them because the house market was so aggressive here. And then was very blessed. Had 2 weeks left to where I literally had nothing else. Went through all of my savings, all that stuff I sold, all that money's gone now, on top of like making sure Sydney was good and the girls were good. And then I found this house. Was very blessed when I did the walkthrough. The owner was here, and I kind of got to share my story a little bit. And I offered $20,000 over asking, and there was somebody that offered $35,000 over my $20,000. But found out that when he bought this house 20 years prior, he was a father who had just gone through a divorce with his 2 daughters. And he kind of resonated, because I just was bawling my eyes out in the shop when I met him, because I was desperate. Like, this was my last chance to have a house without losing everything. And I got the house. So now I get the house. Closing cost was way more than expected. And now I've got the house, but I can't get my power. I can't get what I need to run my equipment. I can't make the shop look good. And Evan had called to check on me. And I'm telling him all of this. And he was like, what do you need? I was like, and I've only 2 times in my life have I ever asked for money. When all the power and water got shut off, like I told you in the beginning, I reached out to one of my friends. I needed $120 to get the water turned back on. So he helped me out there. And then Evan this time, and he was like, well, what do you need? And I was like, I don't really know. And he goes, all right, well, I just sent 10 grand. And sent me 10 grand to my account. And that is the reason within 9 days I had my power on. I had the shop beautiful. I had it aesthetically pleasing the way I like to work. Everything looked really good. And that is now 4 times that Evan Hafer stepped up and saved me. So I get everything up and running. And then for the next year and a half, I didn't have a life. I came home. I deleted my number that I've had since I was 16 years old. I deleted my number without telling a soul. Only 20 people had it. And I disappeared for a year and a half. I worked close to 14 to 15 hour days during this time. The only thing I was focused on was being there for Sydney for anything she needed, any beck and call, anything good, bad, it didn't matter. I was going to be there because like I said earlier, I knew I wanted to build that skyscraper. I just didn't have the tools. And then now I was like, I think I'm never going to get to build this, but I sure as hell am going to be a part of this. And I made that commitment that my wife that was it for me. And I personally made a commitment to celibacy. Said that I wouldn't touch another woman until my daughters were 18 and out of the house, if that's the way the good Lord kind of saw my life going. And that took a lot of pressure off of me. And it was the first time that I made a commitment like that I actually meant and stuck with, because through all of this, I needed to rewrite who I am as a man if I wanted the opportunity to be with my wife and to be a good husband. And obviously everything I'd done previously wasn't working. So I got an unbelievable therapist. I have been in therapy off and on for 10 years and it never really worked. And then I knew I needed someone to kind of talk to and guide me through all of this, because I wanted to dig into some heavy shit to rewrite who I am as a human and figure out why I am the way I am. So I jumped on that BetterHelp app, which I liked because if you don't like the therapist, you get rid of them. So I burned through 7 therapists in a week and a half. And then I found Lisa and worked for the FBI for 15 years as a children's sex crime therapist. Worked with gangbangers, worked with essentially everyone you can in a gangster way of being a therapist, and then started her own practice, and then now works with like women empowerment, couples, and just general therapy, and is an absolute no bullshitter. She can see through everything and is not impressed by anybody. So I got super lucky that I found her. At that time, I was doing 2 sessions a week, just diving into all of this. So I was working on my mental and diving that in. I started the 75 Hard program in the middle of all of this going on. And I don't know if you're familiar with 75 Hard, but
I am.
it's a lot. And with all of this going on, I just had to add more to my plate. But I did. And I completed it. Was the best. I finished that December 15th, actually. Yeah, like 3 days ago, a year ago now. I finished it December 15th of last year. And within a year and 14 months, I was able to pay back 90% of that IRS debt. Got my business back up to where it always should have gone. I collect a paycheck now, like everything. Like I only use the business card for business shit. It's just like I finally started figuring it out, but going back to ground zero was everything for me, and losing any ounce of ego that I ever had is gone. I don't have it anymore. And for me to be able to do this, I just want to do right by me, right by God, and right by the kind of man that I want to be. One of my good friends gave me a book. It's called What Radical Husbands Do. And I'm a big proponent of guidance and structure. I don't know if you've picked up on that. Like I thrive in structure. And this book very clearly lays out in 10 chapters what, in my mind, a husband should be and looks like. And it laid it out very clear of if you do these things, you will be successful. And it was one of the books I read during 75 Hard. I hadn't read a book. I think I only read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe series when I was a kid. But in this year and a half, I went to reading maybe 2 books to have read/listened to over 65 books in the last year and a half. Mostly self-help direction, just every book that could be recommended to me. Jack Carr recommended a whole bunch, and I blew through half of his reader list. Just really started working on how do I get the tools to be this guy? Like Change Your Paradigm, Change Your Life. Just a lot of really good books. And that one, What Radical Husbands Do, I've read that book every 2 weeks for a year and a half now. And in following those steps verbatim, it went from I wasn't allowed on the driveway to I'm now at the front door to now I'm inside to, and everything that happened, there was not one moment in this last 2 years that I thought I was going to get my wife back. This was the first time that I believed her when she said it was over, that it was over. And so everything that I was doing was for myself. So there was no letdown. If I did all these and changed my life and I didn't give her back, that's okay, because this is who I am now. I did this for me. This is the kind of man. Just because I'm not with her, I'm still not going to do this. I haven't looked at porn in 2 years now. And it's like, I made that decision for myself. Even right now, if she was remarried with another guy, everything, the guy who's sitting across from you would be the exact same than if I was with her. Because this is just, if I failed as a husband, my daughters were not going to see that failure continue. I watched so many people, including myself, every time we would separate or something bad would happen, I'd be talking to someone within 24 hours. Grass is greener, move on, find someone to fill that hurt. Where this time I didn't want to continue that cycle, that snowball effect, because what kind of man would I be for my daughters if I just found some 27-year-old, started a new relationship, and then in 7 years, I'm in the exact same place I was with the woman I actually loved more than anything on this earth. So I made that commitment and I followed that book, and through me being there, taking a ton of tongue lashings, like all of it, I just took it because it was deserved. And I just, at the end of every day, as I walked out, whether I picked the girls up, no matter what, is there anything else I can do for you before I leave? And that just stuck. And through almost 2 years now of consistency, of slowly getting let back into her life, of I'm the king of bullshit and I have conned her more times than I can count. So this one, it wasn't a con for the first time. And about 6 months ago, it started getting a little better and a little better. And I realized that I never supported her. I realized that she was a walking mat for all of these years, and not on purpose. I didn't want it to be that way, but it just was, because look at everything I'm doing. You're so lucky to have this life. Sacrifice, sacrifice, sacrifice. She didn't ask for this. This isn't her business. She didn't do any of this. So I'm forcing her to do something that she didn't sign up for. And if she doesn't, then she's a piece of shit wife and not supportive. That's just not fair. So I put her as a priority for the first time ever, and truly understood how I had hurt her in all of this. And now if that phone rang, I dropped work. I dropped it. And remember, life's crazy. I've got to make X amount of money a month or we fall behind and I lose it all. Didn't give a fuck. That phone rang, I was there for her. And I wasn't going to let anything in my life take away from that. So that's where the disappearing part was really prevalent, because I had no time for anything. I didn't leave my house except to go get food and Home Depot for a year. Nothing. Didn't see a friend, and I'm from here. Didn't see a friend, didn't hang out with everybody, and it's kind of still that way. So get to the place where we're starting to do a little better. We can be around each other. And one of the things she had said, as long as I've known her, is I want to run a half marathon. It's been this goal for so long. And I'm say it, okay, I'll encourage you. I'll buy the shoes. I'll buy the stuff. And I did all that, but then it turned into a frustration where it was like, fucking do it. If you're going to do it, do it. Like, I'm tired of hearing you talk about it. That's kind of how I approached it, our whole relationship. She mentioned it one day when I was at her house, and I was like, okay, do you want to go for a run tomorrow? She was like, what? And I was like, let's do it. And I was like, I'll just come run with you. And she's not my biggest fan at this time. And she was like, you'd come run? And I was like, yeah, I'll run with you. And that's it. So we just started running. It was earlier this summer, like spring last year. And then we started getting into a rhythm and got into a training program. Then she was like, well, it'd be fun to do one in July. Found the one she liked, and I bought the tickets. And I was like, here's our bibs. We're running in this, so let's just keep going. And I'm working. My life is crazy. I'm doing all of these things, but I was making her a priority and saying, I will be here at the gym, at the trail, at the track, doesn't matter. I will see you succeed. I gave her full control. I was a very, very good runner in the military. Not so much now, but I was way better than her at this time frame, because she couldn't even run a half a mile without walking when we started. And I didn't try to bully her. I didn't take it over. I didn't get frustrated if we had a day where I just was there. And the first time I actually knew what support felt like. It wasn't, hey, I'm going to support you until you don't do what I want to do. I'm just going to be here. And we ran that half marathon, and she didn't walk one time in the 13 miles. And it was one of the proudest I've ever seen her. And it was the first time that I truly supported her in something. And I would say that was one of the biggest shifts in our relationship at this time, where it was like, holy shit, I can't believe this happened. And through all of this, everything I did in the past would come with something. If I do this, you give me that. If I buy you this, I expect sex. If I do this, you give me that. It was the first time I was just doing things for no other reason than that I loved her and that I wanted to do it. And that was the huge mental shift in me, is just do it. Like, it's not just do it, because I'm doing it now by myself. I'm cooking, I'm cleaning, I'm taking care of 2 kids by myself. My house is a wreck. I'm running a business. If I'm able to do this, why not do it already? And I get to see the person I love every day. That is way better. So it was this huge mental shift of, I'm doing all this bullshit anyway, so why don't I come home and clean and ask if she needs something? Give her 5 feet for 5 minutes. That's a big thing for me, is you get home, I say hi to the kids real quick, but they're not my focus. I get within 5 feet of my wife for 5 minutes. She's having a bad day, I'm just in the kitchen. Don't need to talk. I'm going to do dishes. I'm going to be near her. If it's a good day, I'm going to come sit down, throw her legs up on my lap. How's your day doing? How's life? Make her the priority. And my children are seeing this going, wow, mom's a priority. If they try to talk to me, hey guys, this is mommy and daddy time. I'm going to catch up with y'all afterwards. They slowly start picking up on that. And then it turns into, you walk in and they go, oh, mommy and daddy time. We'll see y'all in a minute. And then they run to their bedrooms. And now I've got this complete, how are you? And it doesn't even need to be a how are you. If she doesn't not ready to talk, just I'm here. So I started implementing all these things, and now I can't do it as a husband, but I can implement this into my life and make her a priority. So yeah, man, it just slowly started getting better and better and better. And then, it got to where I was spending the night on the couch and hanging out in the home and doing more family stuff. And then fast forward, Lord willing, they'll be moving back in here in January now. And we're fully back together, and IRS is paid off. My brother is with me now. I can't pay him half of what he's worth, but my brother runs all the business side on the back end of Grizzly Forge. My sister does all my shipping. I've rebuilt a relationship with my family that I never had, that now, like, I talk to my brother every day, and he's become one of my best friends. My wife and I, we've been together 11 years out as of a couple days ago. And it feels like we've never dated. It feels, the relationship I have now is something that I don't think I ever even would have in my wildest dreams thought was possible. And even all the chaos, because right now we're living in 2 houses, split apart. I'm running back and forth. I've been living out of a suitcase for 3 months because I stay at her house. I work at my house. We're trying to get renovations done here, and it's still complete chaos. But when we're together, it's like all of it disappears, and all of this groundwork and rewriting as a human of who I am, what's right, what's wrong, ego dying, all of these things has given me a complete clean slate at 37 years old. And my future's never looked brighter, and it's just the beginning. But I had to hit, I'll touch the stove 5 times if you tell me it's hot before I believe you. And I really wish that this didn't have to happen, but I had to hit complete rock bottom to realize that I'm absolutely nothing. And everything that I thought I was absolute bullshit. And I lost a lot of friendships throughout this. I burned a lot of bridges. I lost business deals and a lot of other things. And I'm completely okay with it now, because if I ever get an opportunity to be in front of those people or see them again in real life, This is me now. There's no, as my therapist likes to joke, there's no bullshitting now. Like I couldn't be that old version of myself if I wanted to. Like this is it. And I was very blessed to be in a position that I literally could disappear for a year and a half. I know a lot of people can't do that, but I was able to, and it changed my life forever.
It's heavy stuff, Lucas.
Yeah, it's a lot. I feel like I just ranted for an hour, but
I have notes now. I'll tell you that much.
I figured as much.
Yeah, let's take a quick break, and we'll dive back into it. Is that cool?
Let's do it.
All right, brother. We're back from the break.
Yes, sir.
This can be your time to apologize for all the text messages you were getting.
Sorry, my bad. I'm on the wife's laptop, and we just got it, and I was rushing to get all this set up, and I had no idea how to turn that off. I was like, please don't make a noise. All right, no more text messages.
So obviously, dude, that's a story, and a very recent story. Like this didn't happen 10 years ago. And first off, I appreciate you sharing it, but I do have some questions. One of them is, we moved to Utah. We're working really close with Black Rifle. In your mind, Lucas, dude, fucking everything's going, man. You're just operating at a very high level. Business is doing good. You got life by the balls. Everything that you want is happening, correct?
Yep, 100%.
Obviously, it wasn't, and you found that out fairly quickly. Do you feel like, looking back at it, that you lost track of your faith during those 2 years, that you thought that everything was just working for you?
I lost track of my faith way before then. It definitely got further away because there was definitely that sense of I'm crushing it. I don't, and again, none of it was conscious. I didn't consciously go, oh, I don't need this. It just sort of happened throughout time and just got further and further and further away.
I like when you said, like, obviously you're trying to put the pieces back together with your wife. And then it's as simple as saying, yo, is there anything else that I can do for you? Is there anything else that you need? I really like that. But women aren't stupid. They can tell if that's genuine or if it's just you checking a box.
100%.
You know what I mean? I'm guilty of that myself, brother. It's like, hey, you need anything? Hey, can I do anything for you? Oh yeah, X, Y, and Z. And I'm fucking pissed that she asked for something. I wasn't genuine, right? I've been down that road as well with my wife. It's like, dude, why are you asking her these things if you don't really mean this? Have you ever, I'm assuming now that those questions to Sid are extremely genuine and you truly do mean, yo, sweetheart, if you need anything, can I do anything for you? And she says X, Y, and Z, you're 100% all for it.
I think before, when that question was asked, if there was a no, then I didn't do anything. I think I relied on that question to tell me what to do. And the big shift was in those moments where I finally made it back into the house, take the trash out, clean up the living room. And now this isn't my home. My wife is very OCD. She's a very clean human and she knows exactly where she wants all her stuff to be. She's always been super into interior decorating. Her house is very put together. A put together space gives her peace. So for me, sometimes trying to help makes it 10 times worse because I put things where I would put them and all of that. So early on, being allowed back in the house, I started paying attention to those things, which I never did before. I would go, this is stupid. I don't want to put this there. Why? Why does that matter? Why does it fucking matter where I put it? If it makes her happy, I'm just going to put it there. And take the trash out and vacuum the living room real quick if it's dirty. If she was taking a shower and I was watching the kids for a minute, I would straighten up the couch, put the blanket down, vacuum the floor, take the trash out. And the trash, and you're married, so there are certain things that can very quickly become a thorn in your side where it's like, I've told you to take the trash out every day. Why don't you take the trash out? The trash was one of those for me. It was my one job to do, and I could never do it. So getting to where I got to where like her trash goes out on Tuesdays. Since she moved into her house, she has not taken her trash cans to the curb one time. Even if I wasn't scheduled to get the kids, I'd run up, get the trash, bring it down to the curb, put it back. It was one of those, you will never do this again. I will do this for you. I'm not asking anymore. I'm just doing. And that shift of doing made me asking the question hold more weight. Because then she goes, oh, you're actually going to do what I say now. Where before, if I'm like, hey, do you need me to do anything? She still has to go out of her way to tell me, no, I need you to do this. I need you to do this. I need you to do this. And I wasn't taking that initiative before. And now I just do the things. It's just, that's what I do. So I think that's where that word started holding weight, is because I actually started doing the things I should have been doing all along, that I was doing in my house by myself. So why can't I do it again in another house where I get to see the person I love every day?
Looking back at it, were there moments and times or little hints where she was kind of being like reaching out or trying to communicate the fact that like, yo, I need this, I need that. Like, you aren't here for me and for the kids?
At this point, I think it was so far gone that in the early phases, there was none of that, because this is the third time, this being the third, that we've separated or something like this has happened. She's the only woman I've ever broken up with and got back together with. And so I think she was kind of like, when I tell you we are not getting back together, like aggressively would remind me of that. And this is where, if I was doing all of these things to get her back, I would have been like, eventually, man, fuck you, and moved on. It didn't matter what she said to me because I was going to be there. There was a moment in this where she was in the house. She was just moved in. She was painting all her walls. She's got a vaulted ceiling at one point. She had a ladder set up, and it was one of those where you had to stand on the top rung to get the corners. And I kind of looked at the ladder and I was like, hey, do you want me to hold the ladder while you paint that? No, I'm good. I got it. Well, if you fell and got hurt, then the girls, like, no one will be here. And then she was like, all right, fine, just hold the fucking ladder. All right. And I just held the ladder in dead silence for 45 minutes. Every time she climbed down, I'd shift it. She'd climb back up, shift it, climb back up. Halfway through that, there was this moment where she was just like, why are you doing this? Like, angry, like frustrated. And because in her mind, everything I'm doing is to get back with her, which is what I've always done in the past. And I looked at her and I go, I'm just here to hold the ladder. I go, you can be an absolute bitch. You can cuss me out the whole time. You can do whatever you want. I'm still going to be here and I'm going to hold the ladder. And that funny phrase, hold the ladder, turned into a repetitive phrase that we said for months later, where if it was irritated or if she felt like I was trying to weasel in or something like that, it was, I'm just here to hold the ladder. I'm going to be here regardless. I got nowhere else to go. There's no one else in my life. You are my priority and my daughters. I'm just going to hold the ladder. And that is where it slowly started changing, is her realizing I wasn't doing these things to get back with her. I was doing them because it's who I was becoming as a man and what I always should have been from the beginning. But I can't change the past. And I'm not going to let that bother me. As Lisa always said, like, that person will always be behind me. But as time goes on, they'll get further and further and further and further away to where I don't even recognize them anymore. And where I'm at in my life right now, I'm having a hard time recognizing that person now. And it's just me. I'm just going to hold the ladder.
Have you forgiven that person?
I don't know. Yes, in a sense of I don't hold it against myself. I'm very clear in understanding. I know my heart, and I know what my heart has always said about this woman and what I wanted. I truly understand now that because of my past, because of my childhood, because of the seeking of affirmation I've sought my whole life. Having an understanding of that now and understanding what it is that I'm looking for and the dangers that come with that. I understand that now. So I don't know if forgive is the right word, but I understand why that person did what they did. I've given them grace. And now, like the military, like all these other chapters of my life, I close that drawer and fucking lock the shit out of it. And I don't think it'll ever, or would have the possibility to ever be opened up again.
Do you think this needed to happen?
100%. In my life in general. Like if Sydney and I, and that's what's so cool about this, man, if we had never gotten back together, it was the biggest life change I've ever had in my life. And regardless of having my wife, this was going to happen. I was going to be this person. If we didn't get back together, my business would go to a place that wouldn't even be possible any other way, just because I would put all of my focus on that, because my happiness was now in my control. I have always sought affirmation and sought other people to bring me joy. And I'm a very people person. I'm obviously a talker. And I was never okay with being alone. And forcing, again, doing something so overly dramatic was what I needed to show myself that this last year is the first time in my life I honestly can say the words that I'm proud of myself. And I've never felt that, to be very honest. I've never done something that even I couldn't see through my own bullshit. There are moments in my life that you would think that I'd be proud or this would be amazing, but I know how I got there. And at the end of the day, it wasn't always the best way. And so now going forward, and even before things worked out with Sid, it was the first time that I had pride in myself, and giving up the seeking of affirmation from women was something that I never, ever, ever thought that I would be able to get rid of. That's something that's tied in through childhood and so many other things. And it was something that I thought would haunt me for the rest of my life. And gaining that power, and especially over porn, was something that I've been looking at porn since I was 16 years old, every freaking day. And just like all of these things for me, again, I'm a very extreme person. My wife is it. That's the only person I want to see naked. That's the only person I want to think about. That's the only woman I want to have interactions with. I deleted over 480 women off of that's chapter 3 of the book, Burn the Boats. There's no options. There's no what if. There's no girl in the back of my head. There's no, well, if this doesn't work out, I'm a, slide in the DMs of this Instagram model. And when I was public about the separation, something that kind of helped me was how fast my DMs exploded. And women that I thought were friends, or, people that I may have not talked to in a few years, that all of a sudden are, hey, I tried texting you, you didn't reply, I just want to check in on you. And like all of that, I would have jumped at that opportunity any time in my life. But I knew, again, it was never about the sex. The hottest girl could have walked in, taken her clothes up, and like, fuck me right here. It wouldn't have happened. Even in my whore phases, that wasn't me. It was all about getting to know somebody, building that repertoire, like the friendship, like building more. And again, that's where we figured out it wasn't just the sex, it was the affirmation part of it. Anytime that I ever fucked up in the past was always with a friend, or with, a friendship that, because I let that woman in my life, that friendship slowly turned into something that doesn't need to be there. I'm a big advocate of, your wife could give you 90% of everything, but that 10%, let's call it sex, because I feel like that's the thing most men struggle with. Maybe she's not giving you that 10% of that affirmation, that sex, that physical touch, that I'm proud of you, you're crushing it. I listened to that podcast last Saturday. It's the best thing. I've listened to it 9 times when your wife may have never listened to it once. that kind of affirmation slowly builds, and then you start seeing the 10% you're missing in that person. And when it comes to being a dude, our dicks are very powerful, and that testosterone and that everything that is wired in us very quickly gets blinded. You get that 10%, and then your eyes are open to, oh fuck, this person's missing 90% of what's actually really important. So now you're in a pickle where, yeah, this is great, I'm getting what I'm missing, but in reality, on paper, the person I'm with is giving me 90. Where if I don't have anyone in my life that even remotely can give me that 10%, all I'm doing is focusing on my 90 and how I can make it better and bring that number up to 100. And once I stopped literally everything, like I don't even follow like normal female pages that are workout or like nothing enters my mind that's not my wife. And for me making that commitment, I never thought that the peace that I feel now is something that I've never experienced in my life, knowing that my only source of affirmation is my wife. And when everything else is gone, where we are, I would say we're 5 months into like, well, maybe not even, like 4 months into being fully a couple. Everything is there, physical, all of it. And even leading up to this, there were times where my wife, one of her favorite things on earth is getting her feet rubbed. And about 6 months ago, I got to the place where I could just start rubbing her feet, where I'd be like, hey, we'd be sitting on the couch, throw your feet over here, let me give you a foot rub. And I just started doing that. And then that escalated to, she would go hop in bed, and I would literally sit on my knees at the end of her bed and just rub her feet. And then she'd pass out. I would get up and I would walk out. Where in the past, I would do things that were sweet or nice, but I always expected sex or something in return. So months of me doing this and laying down this groundwork, being like, oh my God, I got to, and it sounds so cheesy, but for real, it was like, oh my God, I got to touch her feet. Like that was like the greatest sex ever when you're not getting it from anywhere else. When there's not another person out there, getting to rub her feet made me feel so whole and wonderful that I got to do something for her that she enjoyed. And then I almost got addicted to the feeling of doing it selflessly. I know that's really cheesy to say, but I really did get to the place where it was like, it felt nice to show her that I was doing these things without ever anything coming. And then the months of laying that groundwork got to, now it's better than it's ever been, physically, emotionally, relationship wise. And I'm doing all of those things and getting met with more physical touch than I've ever gotten in my life, because I'm doing everything right. So now I have what I always wanted. And I never realized that if I had just done this first and made her a priority, and the way I personally believe marriage should be running is the only way it can be done in this society, where we open up our phones every second and there's the grass is always greener. There's somebody else, there's someone else we can look at. If our wife doesn't do the things that we like, we can jump on porn and find very specifically what we're looking for. And when I got rid of all of that, it's just peaceful. I don't know how else to say it. It's just, there's no thought to it. It's just her now. And again, that goes back to 2 years of committing to this. It's just me now. That really is just me.
I think you said it, man, but I missed it. I was trying to formulate my next thing here, but formulate, I don't even know if that's a word.
It's a good one.
Yeah, okay, good. So are you guys almost completely 100% back together then?
Oh, 100, no, it's 100%. We even talked about last night, we were looking at, because we never got to honeymoon or anything. So we're in the process right now of, renewing our vows. I've been writing my vows now for almost 2 years. Started taking notes, that's again, the book I keep referencing, What Radical Husbands Do. That's a big part of it too, is like one of the chapters is sit there and write down everything your wife loves. Really take a look into that and learn to love what they love. For me, my wife does like sports. She likes football. She's a big UGA fan. And for me, it's a waste of time. I'm never going to sit and watch a fucking game. I get so bored. Like, she loves softball, never gave a fuck about softball, all these things. And it's like now learning to care about the things she likes and do that. That's another part of this that's huge, like the run. I never wanted to run again in my life. I'm fucking over running. Now after 75 hard, I dropped 72 pounds during 75 hard and, 62 pounds in 75 hard and, got back down to like 245, which is the lightest I've weighed. My biggest was 320, but like I said, I was juiced to the gills at that time. I got really heavy into steroids for about 3 years at the peak of my bodyguarding. So cardio just wasn't in it for me anymore. But again, this was something that she wanted more than anything and something that I wanted to do least of anything, but I wanted to support her in that, and it made me a better person. I forgot the benefits of running and how good it actually made me feel and got a bit addicted to it myself again and truly found joy in it because I was trying to support her and love something that she really wanted to do.
Was there ever a point, that's why I brought up the 100% thing. Was there ever a point where you're like 80, 90, 95%, like, you're keeping tabs, how close you guys are to being like 100% official again, where you're like, okay, I made it. How do I not have this relapse and go back down this terrible path that I was on because you're working so hard to get her back, to get that relationship back?
See,
you know what I mean?
I wasn't working to get her back. That truly is the trick, man. Like, I wasn't nothing that I was doing, because then I would be let down if I didn't. Even to this day, sitting in front of you right now, I don't feel like I got her back. Like, it's happened, it's there, everything's great, but I am so keyed into living in the present, living every day, and making sure that this version of me is true. It's more of like, I'm not bullshitting myself, right? And I've bullshitted myself for years. It's more of like not that I'm going to lose this or am I still doing it? It's like, hey, keep me on track. Make sure I'm still doing these things. When it got good and we got back together, the gym fell off for me. Because like I said, I'm still trying to get my business back up. I still work 10-hour days roughly. It's just me that does everything. I make all the knives, the content, the photography, the video, stuff like this. Today is such a blessing, but it'll be 3 days I don't have a shop, and I got my drop coming up on Sunday. So it's a constant, I got to keep going. So things that were a huge part of this growth, we literally had a really good conversation about 3 weeks ago where I made the joke with her. I was like, we have everything. Like, I've got everything I never thought I would have. Why does it feel like it's so tough right now? Why am I so exhausted? Why am I so beat? And it was that recollection of, or realization of what changed. Oh, I haven't been to the gym in the last 4 months. I'm not waking up. My routine that I was following through 75 hard that just stuck after it, this is my life now. But then when I started getting back in good graces with her, now I'm running back and forth between houses. I've got family stuff. I'm the one that every morning I wake up at 6:15. I get my daughters dressed, feed them breakfast, pack their lunch boxes, make sure all their school stuff's good, walk them down to the bus stop, see them off. So every day, that's what I do. Then from there, I leave. And normally I would then go to the gym for an hour and a half, do that. But my brain told me I got to focus on work right now, make money so that I can get the floors ripped up, get the family moved back in. So now I'm not paying for her mortgage, my stuff, all this gas, all of everything. And then I started feeling like something was wrong. And I realized, I shouldn't have put this on the back burner. And literally yesterday was my first day back. getting after it in the gym and realizing, nope, I got to put that as a priority now. So let me restructure some things. Had a wonderful talk with Sid about it. She was incredibly supportive. It kind of boosted her to get back in it as well, because we were going to the gym every day during the marathon training and all of that. We felt so good, but then that is what slid off in this process of getting back together. And I could feel myself mentally getting more frustrated, more stressed out, more anxiety. Oh God, what's wrong with me? Oh yeah, I stopped doing the one thing that keeps my brain the clearest, which is physical working out, something tough, my ice baths, I do all the things. Again, if somebody tells me it's good, I just do it. Don't need to know why, I just do it. And so now we're literally getting right back into that rhythm as of yesterday. So I would say that's the only place that I ever feel like I'm slipping.
Do you feel like you're ever going to be able to tell yourself that, hey, I got her back? Or is that like a mental thing with you where you're always going to kind of, like, it's going to feel like it, but you're like, hey, I just have to keep working on myself. And if I keep doing what I'm supposed to be doing, like, our relationship will just continue growing stronger. Am I making sense?
I think that's exactly it. It's a hard thing to try to explain, but
yes,
because I feel like if I got it back, then it's like, oh,
correct.
I get to breathe.
Yes.
There's
okay.
no
We're on the
part
same
of
page.
me. There's no part of me that's interested in breathing.
Yes.
It's almost a little more chaotic because when it was bad, and this is going to sound so weird, when it was bad, I knew exactly where I stood. So everything's a bonus. If, she's nice, if I get to come in, it's just a win. I wasn't expecting it. It's just there. Now that I'm getting those wins and it's like, hey, we just went to Coulter Wall this last week. We got a date night. We got this. And it's like, oh, this is amazing. The second that's over, I'm like, all right, that was awesome. But and that's where I said that book, I read that book or listen to it every 2 weeks. And that, I think I've gone through that book over 30 times now. And I damn near have it memorized, but that's what keeps me grounded, is reminding me, because when I hear those words, the first time I heard it, I was in a very different place. And it almost triggers those feelings of I'm at ground zero and reminds me how far I've come. And just like my business, like I could say, oh, I sell out every Sunday. This is it. This is great. This is amazing. My brain's already 10 steps ahead of what can I do better? How can I make this better? How can I continue to grow this? It's the exact same feeling. The focus I have on my business is 10 times more with my wife now. It goes wife, daughters, business. And this holds more weight than anything else in my life. I see so many guys, and understandably, that talk about losing sleep or giving all these things up because of what they're building, and this is go time, and their family should understand that may work for them, but it didn't work for me. So now placing my family as that number one spot, when that's good and my foundation is solid, everything else is coming. My business is social media has made it pretty tough over the last year and a half. It's not something that I'm interested in bitching about for hours. I just try to find ways around it because our work is flagged by the AI as deadly weapons. So I've had zero growth and none of my content shown to non-followers for the last 2 years. But even still, it's just how can I pivot, work, and build that? And now that my foundation is good, I have so much more bandwidth knowing the support I have from my family now from the proper angle, and it's just flowing into everything else. And it's like, once they're back under one roof, that's my next big step, because then I feel like the chains are going to be released and this year will be my best year ever.
But it's never over. That's
Never.
kind of the mindset that you're having.
Never.
The moment you think that, oh man, we got her, right? Like freaking husband and wife, daddy, I'm the best business owner, I got it all figured out again, you're apt to fail.
And that got her, if I looked at that, I got her, now that means I can free up bandwidth to business, travel. I turn down more like opportunities people would kill for on a daily basis than anyone I know. Like, I'm so blessed to have so many people want to work with me or do things or projects or travel or hunts. I've learned that one of the biggest things I've learned in the last 2 years is not right now. I would love to be a part of this. I would love to do this. It is not the right time. I would not be able to give you all of me. If this opportunity presents itself in a few years, I will be much better version of myself for it, and you will benefit 10 times better. But if I were to do it now, that could potentially hurt me or take away from what I'm focused on. If I looked at it as my life and my wife and I are great, knowing me, that now means, hey, everything's good here. Let me shift my focus back to what it would be for me as business. All right, we're good. I'm going to go ahead and travel to this Hammer Inn. I'm going to fly out to Hawaii and spend 2 weeks with Neil and work on this for the business. Now that we're good, I'm going to get the business back up, and then we're going to be really good. Now that focus is no longer on them. So for me personally, keeping my focus on them is directly benefiting everything else, and it may be slower growth. And let's just be real, it could fail. But what won't fail is what's really important to me. If knife making completely tanked, bro, there's 10 things I wish I could do. I would dive down leather. I would go down welding. Lineman is super intriguing to me. Like, it's not, I don't have this desperation of this is it. I have morphed into so many different people in my life that I don't have that pressure of this has to work. The only thing that has to work and I have to put 100% into is my family and my children, because it's the one thing that I can't redo. I can't fix that if I lost it. And this was the last opportunity I truly believe that I have for the life and the kind of father and husband I want to be. So everything else is secondary. And now that this is going so well, it's cool to see that translate over to business.
The way that God works is so crazy to me, because you just told your story, and I asked you, like, was it kind of the Lucas show? And you said 1,000%, right? Like, it totally was. Dude, I got called out last night by my wife that it's been the Tyler show, because we talk and we communicate, but it's always about the same fucking thing. And that's knock this, knock that, knock performance this, these guys, that guy, business, 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 business. We got good comms, but it's always about me. And it has been for quite a few months. And she put me in my place last night. It's like, hey, I'm so happy for you. I'm so excited for you. You were absolutely killing it. All the affirmation that, I need. Mm-hmm. Like, as long as I can, if I'm proud of myself and if my wife is proud of me, dude, shit, I'm straight. I know that she's proud of me, but it's not just, look what I'm building, look what I'm doing, look at all the people that I'm helping, look at all these awesome podcasts I'm doing. That is fantastic. But when 5 o'clock comes around and I come home, it needs to be 1,000% about her. She's like, Tyler, you're giving me like 10%. I'm like,
and that's hard when
yeah.
when you're doing a business. I was so blessed to have the greatest insight to business, being so close to Black Rifle and so many companies starting. That community is filled with so many hard hitters and unbelievable men, but I've got to see so many of them, and some have nailed it. Evan is absolutely crushing it, but I've got to see those moments of strife and when it was really hard and a lot of what not to do. And it's so tough, man, because when I moved out there, Evan had every goal of me turning into a Montana knife company. He had every goal of wanting to get me money and build this and make this huge company. And I don't want that, because I know what comes with it and I'm not wired for that. especially where I'm at now. I knew if I were to create something that big, it would take away from what is important for me in my life. Now, it's not a bad thing to say. It may not be for others, or their wives can totally deal with it and get through the hard years. But the way I was going at a baby level, I almost lost all of it. So now let's introduce employees, building something huge, all that. There's no way that the way I work, I'm coming out of that with everything I have now. So I almost to a fault, I was listening to your episode with Mooch, and you're talking about like when you come home, it's if there's that DM, that's that next sale, and I've got to be on my phone, and when I come home to a fault, I don't touch my phone. You're not getting a hold of me. I'm not answering text messages. It is the worst way to run a business, but I have always been so overly transparent with who I am and the way I operate that there's almost a part of it. Yeah, I may lose some sales. Yes, I may not have this, but then other people see that and support me 10 times more because they understand what I'm doing, what I stand for, and what is important for me. So my future of growth will be incredibly slow, making sure that I am maintaining that foundation of what's really important to me.
Yeah. We just talked about it last night, man. I'm trying to implement the 5 p.m. rule again. And part of that is my fault, brother. Like I've given, all of my guys basically 24/7 access to me, and that is not good. Like I don't know how else to put it.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, if you hit me past 5 MST, I got to get back with you in the morning. Period. I got to go do not disturb because I have to be a fucking husband too. And I'm a damn good husband. Like, I'm not, knocking myself that, hey, I'm some piece of shit. No, I take marriage extremely seriously, and we work on it daily. We have hard conversations.
That's the key.
Yeah, and it's not like, how do I describe it? It's not something that I feel like I have to do. I made that commitment to my wife. I love her. Like, it's just me playing my part, right? Like, it's just me being who I am and caring for her because I love her. But I need to give her all of me when I'm home, right? Like there's no calls, there's no text, there's no, hey, let me get this DM. No, man. No, I've done that. I've already done that.
Do you have, you don't have children, right?
About to. That's another thing, right?
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that changes, and that's a whole nother, my girls changed me as a human like nothing else ever has. God knew exactly what he was doing by giving me daughters. I wanted a son so bad.
Calm you down a little bit.
And then once I had my first one, I was begging for a second one. When I found out we were having 2 daughters, I was so stoked, but they softened me in a way that I never expected. And you get 10 years with them. That's it. You get 10 years where you are their everything. You are their idol. You are their friend, you were their source of all of that. But then sports comes in, coaches comes in, friends come in. You have 10 years with that kid to imprint all of you on them and to build that relationship. And so many people use that opportunity. If they're just little people, they'll forget. Fuck that, they will. They may not remember the specific moments, but they will absolutely be wired that way for the rest of their lives if you are not present. And a lot of people use that small child time as a time to get after it, where it's the most important time of your kid's life to know and to see. My daughters are 7 and 6 now. God, are they observant. They absorb everything. And the shift in them and them seeing how I treat their mother, everything we're doing, the 5 feet for 5 minutes, all of that. Your children seeing you in a healthy relationship with their mother, I think is the most important thing you can imprint on kids, especially if you have daughters. And when that kid comes in, that's a whole nother level to the amount of commitment I believe you should put into your family.
Yeah. I'm excited.
And it's the greatest thing, dude.
Yeah, it's like all I think about, Lucas, like fucking all the time.
Are you having a boy or a girl?
I know what I'm having, but we haven't told anybody.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. But it's the best. And once you're past that 3 months, I tell everyone the 3 months are the hardest. But once you hit that 3 month mark, buckle up, because it just every day. And now we're at that phase where we go back and look at the old reels and get all emotional in bed late at night, like looking at them as babies. But it flies, dude. It goes so fast, especially if you're crushing it and going to the gym and running your business and all that. Boy, it flies. And you'll blink and then realize that, yeah, you may have some money in the bank account, you may have a good business, but at the end of the day, if you are being a father is important to you as it is for me, and it's a part of my identity now, and the second biggest, I don't want to miss out on that. And I want to be present, and I want to drive them to school, and I want to do those things. And yeah, it's now I'm at a place where I can do that, and it's because I want to, and I have worked my life to where I put those priorities in place.
How difficult was it for you to just drop that ego, man? Because like it's obvious you've done so much like inner work. Like I'm sure when you're talking to Lisa, is her name? Mm-hmm. Like a lot of childhood shit gets brought up, and that kind of explains some of the reasons why you did what you did, or you think the way that you think. And that's not easy, man. Like I've gone to therapy in the past, and it is all childhood stuff for me. Yeah. Like with my mom and the relationship that we didn't have, and this, that, and the third. And but that it takes I think it's getting better in terms of like guys, talking and getting help and things of that nature. But back in the day, guys talking about their feelings, guys going to therapy, that kind of all got looked down on. Now maybe not so much, but everybody has a fucking ego, man, whether they want to admit it or not. And sometimes I feel like it's a positive. I know I still have one in certain points, and I use it to my advantage.
And so do I. And so do I in certain areas.
Mm-hmm. I think it's important, but there's also times where you just have to fucking kill it. And you did that, but how difficult was that for you to do?
I feel like it happened over time. Like I said, this wasn't the first time this happened. Like when I broke my back, that was the first big loss of ego. So I feel like I've been chipping away at it over time. And there's parts of me as a man where the normal ego would be that I've never had that. Being such a large human, there are a lot of parts of an ego that I just never really had. I've never needed to be the biggest. I've never needed to be the coolest guy in the room. Like quite the opposite. Most of the time where I find myself, I'm never the dude. And I don't need to be. My military career, everything. Like I feel like that's another part of why reliving my military experience isn't that important to me, because I am surrounded by so many absolute gangsters that there is nothing that I could say that's like my experience is a fingernail compared to their whole body. So once that's gone, it's like, okay, I realize in the military, everyone's trying to be the next best thing. And there's always a next best thing. Fuck, you could be a SEAL, but you're not on Team 6. You're not Gold Squadron. You're not in DevGru. Now once you realize that no matter, and I learned this with money, bodyguarding as many people as I did. I bodyguarded some of the richest people in the US, and they're fucking miserable. Like being around the amount of money and the amount of things that I've been blessed to witness and see was another huge part of, is this worth it? Like, I don't need this. Yeah, you're wearing $200,000 worth of chains and jewelry and clothes, and you've got all of this and that, but I hang out with you when we're not in front of people, and you're so sad and miserable, and you're doing all of this because you feel like you should, because of ego, where your life could be so much better. So all that to say, parts of me already didn't have an ego, but the ego of myself, of thinking that I had it all figured out, I think that I would like to say it was some big thought out thing, but when I realized I was ready to leave this earth is when it died. That moment where I was on my face and essentially told the good Lord that I was absolutely nothing without him, and every single thing I had done was absolute bullshit, and here's saying the things out loud. There are things in my life that not a person will ever hear come out of my mouth. And I said those that night. And saying them out loud to what I believe is my Lord and Savior and getting that forgiveness is all I needed. To know that one entity, one thing forgave me and believed that I could be something different. That's all I needed to do this, because my ego is so gone at this point that I don't like the word, I don't give a fuck what anyone thinks, because I do. It would make me sad, but it wouldn't alter the path that I'm on. The only affirmation I need is when I pray in the morning, go through my daily prayer, and at the end of the day, and I'm like, today I did my best. I hope that I was the man that you are envisioning me to be. And tomorrow I'm going to wake up and I'm going to try again to do better than I did today.
You feel like Sid's proud of you?
So she tells me so much, and it's really hard to hear, to be very honest. Like, because I just want to do better. I just want to keep, like you said, and I hadn't clicked that. I actually wrote it down, like when you, earlier when you were like, you got it back. Like, that really resonated with me, because like, even her telling me that she's super proud of me, I think daily she'll look at me and just smile and go, I'm so proud of us. And I am, but it just fires me up to do better.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, when multiple people in my life were like, oh, I knew y'all get back together. I knew that you'd figure this out. And it's like the rage that comes up in me when I hear that, of like, I had to let that go. That was one of the hardest things for me, is like when the people would be like, oh, I knew this would all work out. It's like, no, you didn't. Like, if you knew what I knew and how far gone it was, like, it is a 100% miracle that I have my family back. And it would not have been possible without my faith. I truly 100% will stand on that to the day I die.
Even those phone calls that got answered when you were in your vehicle, I'm sure you think about those quite frequently. Those guys that chose to answer, man. That's fucking...
And that's
a God thing right there, man.
And it was a big wake up. That alone was a big wake up to me, because I got so focused. I spread myself so thin. Like I said, I'm a people person, and I can, like, at the end of this, I'll feel like you're a good buddy. Like, it's just, you would call me, I would do anything for you. But because of my network and being at Black Rifle, I had so much opportunity to give so much of myself to so many people. I was spread so thin that I wasn't able to maintain the relationships that really were important to me. I was giving myself to so many other people that I never called my friends. I never checked in. If I saw you or it was work related, then I'd see you all the time. But as I kept making those calls and it kept going to voicemail, I don't hold it against anyone for not answering, but why would they? And that's something else I took out of there. Now in my truck, I have a sticky note next to my speed gauge, and it's got the top 20 names of my closest friends. And whenever I'm in my truck, I'll take my pen and I'll check one off and I'll call them. And I'll literally just call, and they'll answer, and I'll go, hey, I just want to call, because a lot of my friends are very busy. And I'll just call them and say, hey, I'm not going to take up any of your time. Just want you to know I love you. I'm here. How are you doing? And sometimes those conversations turn into an hour. And then sometimes those conversations are a 3-minute, dude, I needed that. I love you. I'm good. I'll holler at you this weekend. I may never get that this weekend call, but they know that I'm there and they know that I love them. And I want them to know that if they ever got to where I was, that if they called me, I'd answer. I'm tired of losing my friends. I've lost a lot of friends, especially in the last few years, to suicide. I almost was one of those statistics myself. And I'm over it. I'm not here for it. And bringing my circle so much closer now has got to where I have this entire jar of peanut butter and a little bitty piece of bread. And I can do whatever the fuck I want with it. And as I slowly add people into my life now, I'm so careful with even this and other things. Like, I'm so careful with my time now, because I enjoy people. I enjoy being there. I love my job has given me, you would think that it's the blacksmithing I love. It's the doing what I do, getting to build those relationships, especially if it's like a father-son piece, a bachelor groomsman set. I recently had somebody sent me a piece of their tree that their great-great-grandfather planted. They had it all harvested, and I just made their whole family knives with the wood from the tree that their great-grandfather planted. And it's like, the relationships is what I love. I love networking. I love community. I love relationships. But even something you love that can be good can get away from you. And I was just spread too thin. So now I'm focused on my core 20, working on my family, being there for my kids. And there's a part of anxiety that comes with me a little bit sometimes, of feeling like I'm not there for my friends or letting people down or saying no. And that's kind of what I'm working on now, is not
right now.
Exactly. Of getting back to a place where I can slowly let the world back in and get back to the part of what I love, but do it properly and not get drawn out way too much.
I love people that are intentional. Everything.
I've never been intentional.
But I think you are now.
Now, 100%.
I think you are now. I know you are now. And we've been talking almost 2 hours. Without question, you are now. You're very selective. You think and analyze everything that you do.
Because I'm not willing to lose what I have now. It's everything to me.
Because you've lost it.
Yeah.
You've lost it.
And I'm so grateful, more than I could ever put into words, for where I'm at today. And it baffles me, because I'm very shocked that I'm here.
I don't know how to say it, dude. Like, I think you're fucking awesome, dude. Like, I'm proud of you. Like, to do the I know you don't like that, but like, I am. I think what you've done that's what a real man does. Like,
and that's, I believe that. And I like what you just said. Like, it's not, so many men feel like they have to be a gangster to be a man.
You have every excuse in the book to be that, dog. You're 6'7".
No, but what I'm getting at is, what I feel like I've done this year is what a man does.
Yes.
Like, when you put your family first and you focus on your wife, the person that you're going to spend the rest of your life with, your everything, and you pick your priorities, that's a man. Like, that's doing the hard thing. That it's fucking hard. Even now, like you were just talking about how it's the Tyler train, that your wife was saying, like, my wife went to college early on, dropped out, I think her sophomore year, never finished it. And I know that's something that's bothered her. And when we started getting good, she was like, I kind of want to do nursing. I don't know why. In the past, like, I would have been like, this is stupid. You should work for the business. Why would you go to school? You don't need to do this. And it was the first time that I listened to her, and I was like, okay, what does that look like? And just like the half marathon, we talked about it. We discussed it. She made all her applications. She applied. She did this. And each step that we went, that conversation got more serious. And then she got accepted, and she goes, I don't know if I'm going to be a nurse. I don't know if this is something I want. I just know it's something I need to do. And it's, on paper, a horrible time to do this. None of it makes sense. But I went, okay, let's do it. Just like the half marathon, I got you. And she just closed out her first round of finals and everything, just finished the first semester. It was incredibly stressful and tough for her with the kids and studying, and then me still having to work, and then planning my work week out, knowing that she's got tests and I've got to pick the girls up from school and she's in labs this week, but I'm doing it. And I'm still making money. I'm still profitable. I'm still spending time with my daughters. I still get to see her. And now I'm benefiting. Leading into finals was very stressful. In the old days, there would have been a lot of fighting and pointing fingers. But again, that ego, she may snap or be a little rough, but if I was going to hold the ladder and be called a piece of shit for hours, why the fuck am I going to bite on this snap? I'm just going to go, okay. And I'm going to separate myself from that situation and focus on the kids and make dinner and do that. And then 6 hours go by, she finishes that test and she comes out and she goes, I'm so sorry. I appreciate you. I was super stressed out. Thank you so much for handling that the way you did. I'm done with that now. I'm all yours. And now we reconnect, we discuss. She goes, I'm going to work a lot more on myself on this end and being better. You are being so supportive. I wouldn't be able to do this without you. And me breaking that cycle of snapping or being a dick or any of that just put us in an even better place. And then the next final came and there was no arguing, no snapping. We had it planned out perfectly and we crushed it. But it wouldn't have happened if I wasn't all in on her next chapter of whatever that looks like.
And that's not up to you to decide what that chapter is.
I can't pick her identity. Correct. And I try to force her to be something that I thought I needed and she should be since the day I met her. And this is the first time that I've completely given her her own anonymity, her own self, and supporting what she wants to do. And if tomorrow she came to me and she was like, that didn't work out at all, that was horrible. Okay, because I had 32 jobs in a year and a half and she stood by me. So what's to say that if she wants to have a job, even though she doesn't need to, she hasn't had to work in 5 years. And just because I wouldn't, and I would focus on other things, doesn't mean that's her path. So for me, just focusing, communicating, talking that out with her, but her knowing that I'm not trying to convince her out of it, that I'm laying that groundwork of her knowing I'm going to support her, opens up real conversation because now she's not defensive. And she knows if she says she wants to do this, she's going to do it. And she's going to have all of my support on that because we've communicated and talked about it.
Yeah, communication in a relationship is a word that just gets thrown around constantly. Same with like listening. I'm listening to you. It's like, well, there's different versions of listening, man. You can listen with the
Don't I know?
You can listen with the intent to understand, which in my opinion is the correct way, or you can listen with the intent to fucking respond, which will get you in trouble. Very much so.
I've always had that next rebuttal.
Yeah.
Like, how am I going to phrase this? How am I going to twist this? How missing out
it's
on
manipulative.
Everything. And the communication's hard, dude. Fuck. That's I'd say the hardest part. And the cool thing is 3 months into me getting Lisa, I was already so blown away with her. And we had tried couples therapy and all sorts of other shit early on. I knew that she would benefit from her. And Lisa is so good at keeping what we discuss is here, what we discuss is there. And she normally doesn't take couples like separately. But after getting to know me, she was like, if Sid would be open to it, I'll take her. So 3 months in, where like she's literally not talking to me right now, I convinced her to start going to Lisa and I was paying for it. So I was like, you don't have to worry about this. You don't have to pay for it. I just think this would be beneficial. And so she started seeing my therapist separately. I was going way more because I had the money for that and my business was covering it. But for her, I had her going, I think every 2 weeks. And then we've stayed on that. We both still, now I see Lisa every 2 weeks now, but we do our sessions separately. I'll do like 9:30, then she'll do 10:30. And what's been happening for the last like 4 or 5 months is we'll have our sessions, talk about everything. And then when we're done with our separates, she and I will she'll drive to my house or I'll jump on the phone with her. We'll end up talking for another hour of just what we worked through, what we discussed, the things that we're doing in our life, because we're both telling our stories separately to this person, but then we get to reconvene and discuss it together of like, oh my God, I said that too, or holy shit, I was so proud of this, or I brought this up. And that has helped us learning to communicate so much. It's just what you put your time into to get better at. And for me, that's where all my time is right now, to a fault. And like I said, if I lose friendships or people get frustrated with me or get irritated, then it's kind of a good thing because I don't really need them in my life anyway. Because at the end of the day, there's 4 people, me and those 3 girls, that's all I need. I really don't need anything else. As long as I've got them, I'm the happiest man on earth. And it just gives you a bit of freedom.
Yeah, man, I've cut people out of my life like that don't understand. It's like, hey, man, let's go do this. No, I'm with my wife. Like, I'm not right now. Oh, man, come on, man, you never want to hang out. Dude, did you hear what I said? I said I'm with my wife, brother. Like, that's what it is. And those people, they can miss me all day long. I don't have any time for that. Those aren't the people that you want to be around. The people that are like, oh, listen, man, no problem at all. Totally get it. Hit me when you're free or whatever. Those are the people that you need to keep close to you. The people that understand, because that's first, and it's always going to be first, no matter what.
And realizing that sometimes, I heard this a while ago and I loved it. I don't even remember who said it. I look at friends now in a very different way where you outgrow them. People think of a rocket. You got boosters. At some point, that booster's got to break off. Doesn't mean it was bad. Doesn't mean it did its job. It got you the direction you needed to go. I got no beef with that booster or anything. It was perfect and amazing. And we may have a long-term relationship where if I got that phone call from that person and they needed something, I'd be there in a heartbeat. But I'm now on to the next chapter of that journey, and that booster's coming back down. It's kind of how I look at a lot of people in my life now. Of during that chapter of my life, you were my best friend and you were there for me in a way that no one else was. But now where my life is going, it's okay to be doing something different. I have a friend circle here that they still love going to casinos together and they do bro trips every month and all of this stuff. And I'm not in. I tell them, and it's like, it's not that I don't love y'all. If you want to go camping or do something with the families or, come over here and sling some arrows and do something, then I'm in. But there's nothing that's going to benefit me from going out getting hammered with y'all for a weekend at a casino and fucking off or going on a bro trip or, going skiing with the boys. Like, I'm not interested in that anymore. Mm-hmm. And that's okay if that's your life and that's what you're interested in. I hold no animosity and I definitely don't think I'm better. It's just that we're on a different trajectory and the things that are important to me and that I want to spend my time on isn't for you. And I get the whole, I need bro trips and guy time. I don't need that. It's my family is where I'm truly the happiest. And it sucks that if that's not the same for you, but I'm not here to make you be different or do what I'm doing. I'm just focused on me. And if you don't fit in that, then it's okay. I still love you. I'm still going to be there. I'm just not going to spend my time with you.
And the people that don't respect that aren't people that you need to be around, because in one way, shape, or form, they're looking to justify what it is that they're doing, right? Like it's like with drinking. If somebody invites you out to drink and you decide that you want to go out, but you don't have any intent on drinking and they try to peer pressure you into that, it's because they don't want to drink alone and they don't want to feel guilty about doing so. So they want you to follow their path. Their path isn't wrong by any stretch, but it's just not the path that you're on. That's how I look at it.
Well, everyone needs a partner in crime. If you're on a trip with the boys and one dude starts talking to a girl and kind of, well, we're on a trip, it's okay, everyone's kind of cool with it, it gives you that justification. But sadly, if you have a weirdo like me now that's in that group where I take things to a even more extreme, it's like, yeah, guys, sorry, I'm not going to that table because you invited these 3 girls and I'm just not interested in being there. Dude, we're not going to fuck them. We're just hanging, man.
That's how it starts.
And then it's like, yeah, none of y'all may do that. I'm not even interested in being in that position now. And then that kind of makes them feel a kind of way of, oh, you're fucking better than me. I'm not cheating. Like, I'm a good husband. And then it's like, I don't even want to put myself in this position where I would have to say no, because then it's going to give you a decision. And like the drinking thing, it's normally met with animosity. Where it's like, dude, what the fuck? You too good for us now? Or blah, blah, blah. And it's like, now I'm dealing with that. And it's like stressful. And I feel like I've let them down. And because I still get in my head. I'm not fucking perfect. I'm the worst overthinker on earth. So I'm not even going to put myself in that position where I have to say no, excuse myself, leave. I'm just not going to do it. And so, yeah, nope.
It's weird, man. You meet people and you feel like you've known them for a long time. That's kind of how I feel like this has been.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's rad, man. I can't thank you enough for the opportunity to like share all this stuff and kind of talk about it. It's the first podcast I've done. I did one recently with a knife friend that's more knife centric. It won't come out till January. So this will be my first time talking in over 3 years. The last podcast I did was with Jack Carr, literally right before all of this happened. So what's kind of cool is you can go listen to that Jack Carr podcast, hear where I was at that point in life. And then 5 days after that podcast got dropped is when everything happened. So it is, I guarantee if you listen to these two back to back, there's going to be a very big difference of the dude that was talking.
Have you listened to that back?
No, I don't ever listen to any podcast I'm on. My memory is so horrible. I always will listen and be like, fuck, I said it was 2017 and not 16, or I said this, someone's going to call me out on that. Like, my TBI is really horrific and I have really bad memory loss. Now it's getting pretty bad short term. I'm kind of going through a lot of stuff right now, trying to figure this out because I'm at a really high risk for early onset Alzheimer's. I played rugby for a lot of time, had some really rough concussions through that, and then military, and my head's just pretty jumbled. And I always thought like everyone in the military is like, oh, I got memory issues, I've been blown up. It's just kind of written off. And then it wasn't till I was going through my disability process this year that I really started getting looked at and was confirmed that I'm a little messed up. And that's been a lot of help in this as well, as I would beat myself up a lot for not being able to remember things or people's names or moments or legit years of my life. I just don't remember. And it makes you feel pretty crazy and pretty stupid, especially when I'm like quoting something or saying something and I get it wrong. So I have to put a lot of effort into my thought, and that's a lot of, I think it was around this time. So long story, yeah, but I don't ever listen to anything again because I'll pick up like 20 things I said wrong or a little thing where I was wrong on a date, and it just drives me nuts. But yeah.
Talk about your relationship with Jack, man. I know I've read all his books. He's been on the show. The shout out that you got in that book, I mean, you're not going to fanboy over it, but that's pretty freaking cool.
No,
that's pretty freaking cool, dude.
I
really?
lost my mind. So I think it was Terminalist 1. I don't think the first one, maybe the first book had just come out, but he reached out before I was even in Utah. So, and that's what's cool is like, there's these little affirmation moments where people followed me before, because once you get plugged into Black Rifle or an entity like that, it's easy to say, hey, if this hadn't happened, I never would have got this. Or the only reason people give a shit is because I'm affiliated with this person. But early on, like Rogan started following me when I was under 2,000 followers. And like that was a day where I literally shit my pants and probably checked my follow count. I probably looked to see if he followed, because I thought it was a fuck up. I was like, man, I must have popped up on something. And he actually, dude, I'm no bullshit, for a month, every other day, I'd jump on and be like, he still follows me. Holy shit. And then a few years later, I got to make him a knife. But Jack was one of those for me where he reached out. We started talking. I was absolutely floored. And he was like, dude, I'd love to get a knife. And I was like, man, I want to design something specific for you. So I kind of got into drawing, came up with a bunch of knives, came up with the Revenant, sent him a photo. And he was like, bro, that's hard. I love it. So I designed the Revenant, which now is a staple for Grizzly Forge, and it's the only knife in my repertoire that will always be there. I'll never retire that. And that knife has changed probably 6 times in the last 6 years, where it has slowly evolved. And as my skill, because that's another thing, is I was so blessed that my business blew up and I got a cult following very early, but my skill level wasn't where my support was. So I've constantly been trying to catch up skill wise as all my knives are selling, which again, I'm super blessed, but it wasn't planned. So as I get better, those knives continue to evolve, get better. I change processes. But that support from Jack, I've never received, besides Evan, I've never received support from someone like him. That dude, and he also, I don't know how he does it. He's one of those outliers where I could text him, message him, anything, and he will reply back to me within 10 minutes. I don't know how that dude does what he does, because it's not just me. I know another 20 people that can say the same thing. He's a superhero, but his support for my business and how much he's promoted it, shared my work. Every Christmas, I'm in his gift catalog and blah, blah, blah. And then he didn't even tell me that I was going to have a shout out in the book. And every year, I'm very proud. I like to think that I have one of the best unboxing videos every year. I always get the box with the new book and go out of my way to like make a really cool video of promoting it for him, because from a business standpoint, it's one of the greatest marketing tools you can have. I do the same when I come out with new merch or stuff. So I'll send it to like my top supporters, let them promote it, get it out there. So for me, I feel very honored to be on that list. So I really put in a lot of work, kind of like this, like I don't half-ass anything. It's like, fuck, I got to get a mic, a headset. I got to make sure all this looks good. So if he's taking the time to hand write me a note, put this package together, I want to go above and beyond and do a really rad video to promote this year's hard work for him. And so, yeah, I got the book. Hadn't even read it yet. I was listening to it, and then my phone just started blowing up because it was like the day it was released. And then all my buddies are hitting me up going, dude, you're in the book, you're in the book. And then I fast forwarded straight to that part,
Of course.
listened to it and shit my pants. I was so tickled. That was definitely a highlight for me in my career. But that dude, I mean, he could call me right now and say, I need you, and I'd be on a flight to Utah. He's one of those outliers for me in my business that was there from day one and supported me like no one else did.
Is knife making therapeutic for you?
Oh, so much.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what got me into it. Like I said, that program was called Hammer Therapy.
Yeah.
And it was a program just for vets to beat their feelings out. And when I'm in my shop, nothing else matters. Yeah. I get to sweat. It's got a pretty high risk of danger. I'm dealing with a forge, hot steel, shit that can explode. My poor hands are nothing but scars and jacked up. Like, it's a very focused job where when I'm in there, I'm pretty keyed in on what I'm doing and nothing else really matters. And like I said, as lame from an artistic side as it sounds, I like it even more when I get to tell stories with my work and I get to implement things that have historic meaning. Like for instance, the knife, I was blessed enough. I've been working closely with the Abbey Gate Coalition for the last year and a half. It's the coalition that was put together by the 13 service members, families that died in Afghanistan. And at the time when they reached out to me, they were asking if I could make a knife for them that was going to be raffled off to bring funds, because they're in the process of trying to hold those accountable for that horrific thing that happened in Afghanistan. And even though I never got to serve in Afghanistan, I have a lot of friends that did, and I lost a lot of friends there. And then being at Black Rifle, a lot of the employees that work in the back are all Afghani. So Evan gave so many of the interpreters and people that they worked with overseas a place to come, be safe, have their families. Like Wally was one of the Terps that Evan served with. He was a commando of over 1,000 troops, 1,500 missions as an Afghani commando, moved here to the States, was working at a gas station as an Afghani commando, and was absolutely miserable. His children were getting shunned and discriminated against. And then he saw Jeff Kirkham on a podcast, which was someone Evan served with. They realized Wally was still alive, thought he had died, got in touch with them, and then Evan moved him, his entire family, out to Utah, gave him a home, gave him a place to work. So all that being said, I had a very close relationship with all these Afghanis, and when that happened, their families were being murdered within hours of it happening. And that building was one of the hardest places to be for those 10 days while all that was going on, because half the staff was wondering if their families were still alive. And there were missions going on with friends related to the company that were flying out there to try to bring back as many of them that they could. So long story short, I was very angry with our government and still am with how that happened. So when the coalition reached out, I was beyond honored to get to do something, and that very quickly turned into I'm now making a knife for Trump that they're going to present to him, because at this point in time, if he gets into office, he has made a promise to them that he will go after who was responsible for Afghanistan. So when I heard I was doing that, I'm not a political person. I have zero interest. I will never in my life idolize a politician. The way I look at it is you work for me, and I have no interest in anything else besides that. I hate pretty much all politicians, and I stay completely out of the political scene because my opinion's my opinion. You do you, I'll do me. Don't give a shit. So when I had the opportunity to do something like this, I was a little nervous just because of how crazy being a part of all this, especially being attached to him, can be. As much as I was dealing with the fact of this is who I'm going to vote for, because there are no other options. It's pretty amazing that I have the opportunity to make even if it's a past president, a knife. That's pretty cool, regardless of who it is. So I knew I wanted to do something special. One of my very dear friends is one of the operators that was on the al-Baghdadi raid. He's one of the heavy breachers that actually blew the hole in the wall that then triggered him to blow himself up. And he gave me the shirt he wore from that operation that had al-Baghdadi's blood on it. He gave me steel from part of the frame that they blew. And I forged that steel into the blade, used his t-shirt as the backdrop for the plaque. And then I used wrought iron from an 18th century wagon wheel that crossed the U.S. During the Oregon Trail for the guard. And then the handle was white oak from the last known tree that George Washington planted at Mount Vernon that fell 7 years ago, was harvested by my old unit. The Presidential Honor Guard did a ceremony on the tree. And then I was able to get some of that wood. So he got to have the handle of his knife is wood from the last known tree that George Washington planted. And the piece that we got to use was the piece behind where the Union soldiers carved the Union Cross into that tree. So making pieces personal like that, and because of my network, I am very blessed to be able to source some pretty wild material. That's what I love. And, that knife told a really big story. And then I got to present it to him with the coalition up in Utah, actually. He was up there for a fundraiser. And it was just really cool to get to do that and then see his excitement on it's not just a cool knife. It's like, oh, fuck. And then he went off on this 45-minute rant, which that dude not only is the funniest human on earth to listen to talk. Like, I literally felt like I was at a stand-up comedy show. And then the second is he'll just talk. And he talked about that entire mission from start to finish, went on and on about it, which was pretty cool to hear. But normally when pieces like that are made, presidents and people like that have these connexes where just shit's stored because they get so much crap. But I got a photo that was actually hung up in his office in New York behind his desk, which is pretty freaking rad. So getting to tell a story, be a part of something like that, and bring awareness to something that's very important to me, that's where I really enjoy what I do.
When it comes to profession, is Grizzly Forge right where you think you need to be? Is that what you were put here to do?
I'm still figuring that out. It may sound like I have a lot together right now. I'm definitely a lot better than where I was, but there's still a lot of searching. I've struggled with that word purpose for quite some time. And I'm not in a rush to figure that out, but I don't know what that is yet. And in this part of losing my ego is losing any ideas of what I'm supposed to do. And for me personally, it's giving that up to God and faith and saying, this isn't up to me to decide what my purpose is or what I'm supposed to do. I am open to listen to you and hopefully have your guidance of where I'm supposed to go. Obviously that has worked with the kind of man I want to be. So now I'm kind of giving that faith up to, I'm listening to whatever gets put, even to this podcast. One of the reasons I say yes is I'm listening to, okay, this may not be something I'm ready to do right now, but it feels right. So that's why I'm here in front of you today. So I don't know if blacksmithing per se is my purpose, but I feel like that is going to show me where I'm supposed to go. And I'm listening pretty heavy of what that looks like. Because right now, the only thing I'm focused on is being a husband and a father. But I don't know if that's my purpose. So I'm kind of in that rebuilding stage of listening to what's next. I've got, now that I have the opportunity to have back what I lost, that's where my focus is. And once we're all under one roof and kind of have somewhat situated, then I'll start focusing on where am I going next and what does that look like?
What areas in your life can you improve on?
For me, the biggest right now is the fitness, getting back to where I was. That is number one for me right now, getting my diet back in check. I've done it. I know how great it feels. I know what it is.
You know how to do it.
100%. And my body knows how to do it. It was my life for so long. So it's so nice to be able to jump back in. But what was wild this time is after 75 hard and everything, I was feeling so amazing. And this is the first time that I've got to exactly where I need to be and fell off. And it's wild to see the amount of pain, inflammation, my back, my mental brain fog. So it was a pretty heavy kick in the nuts of, oh, that's right. That's why I do this. And it's not that I didn't want to. It's that, and I don't even like, because it sounds like an excuse, but I had to put my focus on the family, being there, hanging out with her. And at my house, the gym's 2 miles down the road. At her house, it's 40 minutes down the road. And so if I'm picking the kids up, then I have to bring them back. And it's this whole... An excuse, yes, I'm making one right now. But where I got mentally and where we had that conversation a week or so ago, it was like, all right, excuse is over. Now let's bring this down a little bit because finals are done, school is out. Let's put the gym as a priority. Y'all are going to be moved back in here hopefully by the second week of January. And now I don't leave my little hub, my 5-mile radius, and I can dive back into thriving. So I would say the biggest thing for me now is getting back into shape and then opening myself back up to conversations, doing stuff like this, and letting the world see the next evolution of myself and the business.
Yeah. Because you have not only a story, but a story that I feel like people need to hear, man. A lot of people have gone through similar things, such as yourself. And not everybody talks about it. And of course, your business is your business. And you can pick and choose when to share it or how much to share of it. But for you to jump on this platform and share it, a lot of things that maybe you've never shared before, apart from with your wife or with Lisa. I personally don't take that lightly, man. Like, one single bit. I hope this was exactly what you thought it would be.
And so much more, dude.
Awesome. Yeah, I know that it was for me. I started with 0 notes and I have a ton now, but is there anything else on your heart, Lucas, or that you'd like to touch on? And if so, send it. If not, huge honor, man.
Well, the only thing I would say is thank you for giving it the opportunity. I don't mind. I'm a very open person, and I don't mind talking about my mistakes because it's not who I am. Where if you were still living that life, it would be bullshit. And people like you building a platform and a way to do this is really amazing. And giving someone like myself an opportunity to share this and talk about it freely and just essentially take the reins off is pretty amazing because I have no interest in, the only option is pretending that I've got it all worked out, become an influencer, talk about these are all the things you need to do to have a great life. And That doesn't work, and 99% of people that do that, I've watched it time and time again. The bro with the cigar in his mouth and the Lambo and this smoking ass wife and this job and no one fucks you like I fuck her and like all this, they're divorced within a year. And it's like, there is no way to share this without someone like you, because I sure don't think it's that important to do it myself. And it sure as hell wouldn't have been received the way it will if it was me putting it out. So I'm beyond grateful for people like you who create podcasts like this. It's definitely something I couldn't do, and giving people like myself an opportunity to talk. It's a really cool thing, man, and I can't thank you enough.
No, likewise, man. Where can people follow your journey if they're not
Grizzly
already
Forge.
doing so?
Grizzly Forge across the board. You can Google Grizzly Forge or just Lucas O'Hara. We do knife drops. We're actually switching it up. Starting January, we're going to be doing knife drops every single 2 weeks, every Sunday, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And very blessed to be on the website when they drop. They move pretty quick. And yeah, I'm very excited for this upcoming year. Got a lot of really cool training coming up. And we're going to be taking Grizzly Forge to this next level. And I'm beyond excited. I know we didn't even talk about business stuff, but boy, this next year is going to be super rad. So I'm stoked.
We can if you'd like.
Oh no, man, we're Gucci. I just say we jump on another one here in 6 months, and then we can dive into some fun business stuff. I hope this isn't the last time we get to chat like this.
It won't be, man. It won't be. You're a fucking awesome human, dude. I really mean that.
I appreciate you, brother. I'm trying every day.
Yeah, me too, man. Perfect. Do me a solid and stay on the line so we can get your files uploaded, and we will do this again, man. No questions asked. We will definitely do this again.
Looking forward to it, Tyler. Thank you, brother.
Thank you, man.